It's time for Windows Weekly. Paul Thurrott's here. Richard Campbell's here. We'll talk about Week D. It's here too. And actually, there's a lot of new stuff going in there. New Friday builds for the Windows Insider program. We'll talk about AI and Paul's love, his newfound love for Linux. I kid you not. Windows Weekly is coming up next. You can yell at him later.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This is Windows Weekly with Paul Thurrott and Richard Campbell, episode 985, recorded Wednesday, May 27th, 2026. Putting the metal in experimental. It's time for Windows Weekly, the show we cover the latest news from Microsoft. And here they are, the dynamic duo of Microsoft journalism. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, winners and dozers. I give you Paul Thurrott. Is that good? You like that?
Hello, Leo. Yes.
I always wanted to be a circus ringmaster of Thurrott.com. And his cohort in crime, Mr. Richard Campbell from RunAsRadio.com.
Stretch to call me a journalist, goodness knows.
Paul is in Macungie.
The best.
Richard's in Mad Park. And all's right with the world.
Yep.
Except there's this thing called Microsoft.
Yeah. They usually throw a wrench into everything.
Week D! I love Week D. I look forward to Week D.
I do too, and then I forget it happens, and I wake up at, I don't wake up, but at 4:30, 5 o'clock in the afternoon, it's like, oh, right, this happens all the time. Why do I always forget this?
So there are usually 4 weeks. Sometimes there's a fifth partial week in the month.
Yep.
Is there a Week E?
Yeah, but there's no, regularly scheduled event.
Nothing's supposed to happen on Week E.
Windows
update. 4 times a year we getting a fifth week, right?
Yeah.
Because we decided to do stupid months.
And I maybe Richard might remember. I don't remember the point of Patch Tuesday is the second Tuesday of the month, and then the Week D preview update now, which is a relatively recent construct, is typically, but not always, the fourth Tuesday.
So it has nothing to do with the Chicago Bulls or anything like that.
No, no, I don't think so.
That's a different kind of week.
That's a different Week D.
Sorry, it took me a second there.
I know. I'm sorry. There. I thought a basketball reference would be right up your alley, so to speak, but maybe not.
I'm sorry.
I threw you the ball and you dropped it.
I mean, the whole league is Week D at this point.
Really.
Week to non-existent.
So Week D, what does Microsoft do on Week D? So Week B is Patch Tuesday week.
Yeah, that's right. We don't. Yeah, and oddly, you never really hear the term Week B that much, do you? But
no.
But yes, in Microsoft's kind of release cadence, whatever, that's what it is. This stuff has changed over the years. Obviously, the whole way that Microsoft develops software has changed. But with the changes we're seeing this year to Windows 11 and the improvements, the pain point addressing, and so on, we're seeing a return to what I think to be a more normal or logical, common sense kind of a schedule, meaning that they won't always, but will often go, through the Insider program, Canary to experimental to beta to release preview, and then out to general or stable or whatever. Outside of the Insider program, the Week D Tuesday, it's not always Tuesday, but the weekday update is a chance to test what will be next month's Patch Tuesday 2 weeks prior. So last week, I think it was, if it wasn't, it was the week before, but probably last week, we talked about a recent set of release preview builds that were a preview of this, and this is a preview of Patch Tuesday. So the same kind of set of updates, except not exactly, interestingly. I know Richard will remember this, but others may not remember that Windows 11, 24, and 25H2 are in the same code base, so they get the same update, literally. Mm-hmm. They go to slightly different build numbers, right? One is 26,100 series builds. The other one is 26,200 series builds. But the minor part of the build number, whatever.
I'd love to see the build pipeline on this. That they literally are taking the same code and pushing it to multiple build numbers.
So it's amazing you say that. I'm going to reference the past a lot today because I'm old and that's what I do now. But back when Microsoft was working on what became Windows Server 2003, which was part of the wave of updates that also included the XP SP2 stuff with the security push, trustworthy computing. This was going to be in the case, well, in both cases, but in the case of server, especially Windows.NET Server. Remember the first release, right? And the trustworthy computing and then a common sense thing for branding kind of changed all that. But at that time, when Windows development was pretty simple, compared to today, remember the guy, whoever I was talking to at the time, drew this thing on the whiteboard and he was talking about branches and forking and how, I can't remember the details of this exactly. I drew a picture of it that I put in some blog post at the time. This is 20 plus years ago, almost 25 years ago. Where there was a main kind of a trunk for Windows client and then a separate one for server. And because of all the Longhorn silliness, the client thing had gone off on its own, server had gone off on its own. And then to do what became Vista, and this was the case of Server 2003 as well, it was based on the server code based, right? So anyway, he drew this, it was sideways. It wasn't like a tree going up like you would, a normal tree, but it was a sideways tree and it had, just a couple branches. And I was like, yeah, I can't handle this. And the way it is today, you couldn't make an infographic that could fit all the branches of builds that we have today through all the versions of the Insider program.
Lines would overlap constantly.
It's just, it would look like a tentacled sea monster. Like it's insanity. But just speaking just of the stable supported versions of Windows today, Windows 11 versions 24 and 25H2, again, same code base, different version numbers, different names, but the exact same thing, right? The features are always going to be the same on both. Yeah, it's just the way it is, right? And that's good for a lot of reasons. In Microsoft's case, it's good because they can release a single KB, which is a cumulative update, which is a monthly Patch Tuesday update usually, that services both and does the same thing to both, right? And so for week D, we're seeing that. You get this, it's the same KB, it's the same literal update, it's this, the build numbers are very slightly different, but that's just because they have to be, whatever. Until this year, 26H1, they've also been testing that and putting out monthly updates to that for some reason, even though for the first couple of months, especially, no one had one of these computers, but it was always a month behind. And as recently as last week, I commented on this. I think I said something to the tune of, for stable, 26H1 is like the canary version in the Insider program, meaning it's always a little bit behind. You would think it's the most advanced one, so to speak. It should be out there in the forefront. It hasn't been. But this month, I was surprised to say it caught up, or Microsoft caught it up, meaning even though it's getting a different KB from 24 and 25H2, because it is a different code base, the features it's getting, the changes, the updates, whatever, are, unless I miss something small, exactly the same with 24 and 25H2. That's a first.
Now, what about the ARM line on this?
Yeah, so that's what this is technically. So 26H1 is only for X2 based computers. Okay. Even though in the Insider program, you could, with an Intel or AMD or a previous gen Snapdragon X computer, enroll your PC in that and get the updates that they're never going to ship publicly.
Right.
The couple of weirdness, well, it's more than a couple, but one of the weird things is 2425H2 will be upgradable to 26H2, which Microsoft has literally named. So the standard end of the year update, typically around October. 26H1 will not. And they have not said what you'll go to. So in some ways, it doesn't matter because, again, these things are going to be updated in lockstep going forward anyway, functionally, unless something changes, and it could. But
I would have thought they'd bring it all together to 26H2 once the X2s are out in the world and they're got a feel.
You would think that because but you think clearly, and that's logical. And that's, and that's just where you're failing. So they have never said. They basically they left it very vague. We will at some time in the future explain what the path forward is, and then at some point, of course, these things will all, get flushed down the same toilet or whatever. But My theory, which, by the way, I haven't written about this because it's too vague to bother, but I guess I'll mention it here, is that this will become Windows 12, right? That 26H1 will become
12.
Well, 12. And then, of course, 26H2 will also, get that upgrade path as well. That thing I just heard is that we know, because Microsoft, I'm not sure they said this explicitly, but Microsoft is using AI to find bugs in Windows in the code base, like everyone is, right? Mm-hmm. And last month they were talking about this M- in-house frontier model they created. It's more of an orchestrator, but a frontier model essentially for finding bugs in the Azure Windows code bases, whatever. They apparently have also been using Mythos, like a lot of other people. Sure. They were one of the first companies to get access to that. They have found an astronomical number of bugs, right? Which is
astronomical, and by all accounts, like own the keys to the castle type bugs. Like not, this is a potential weakness, but it's like, if they enact this, they have everything.
Right, and this is
over again.
Right. This is both the concern, but also the promise of this stuff, right? That especially for a proprietary software company like Microsoft, this can be embarrassing and bad, and it sounds like bad PR. But we keep talking about this. Like I feel very strongly that any company that creates software of any kind should use AI, like Firefox is doing, like others are doing.
By all accounts, it is an absolute arms race going on right now.
Yeah.
Right? That most people don't want to talk about at all, but it's like we only have so many weeks before the black hats have access to tools that can reveal these vulnerabilities as fast as we can, and we got to get them all fixed. They only have to exploit one of them.
So this might be a couple of years ago, or at least a year ago, I was talking about Rust, and Mark Razinovich and Dave Weston. The security guy from Microsoft now. Sure. And how, they're talking about Rust and adopting Rust across the board. And I purposely made this very generalized kind of prediction statement, whatever, that knowing that people would try to pick it apart, but that Microsoft should use AI to rewrite the Windows, Azure, whatever kernel in Rust, which it is overly simplistic. And yet when you look at the way this stuff has evolved, maybe that's not so far-fetched, I have not heard that they're doing that per se, right? There was that job listing where they were looking for more people with Rust expertise, et cetera, et cetera. There's definitely going to be more Rust work at low levels in Windows and Azure and all that stuff, of course. But this Windows 12 thing it has been different things at different times. Like the AI stuff we see in Windows 11 at one point was going to be Windows 12, and then they kind of stepped back from that. And right now, the vague thing that I'm hearing is that it's going to be this security refactoring from Mythos and M- that will form the foundation of what is Windows 12, and it will continue the message we're hearing this year about these pain point things that Microsoft is addressing, right? But doing so in a far more architectural sense.
Well, I wonder if right now they're just patching what they can patch, and sooner or later they're going to run into a set of problems where it's like this requires a rethink, aka a new version, right? And you were just talking about SP2, like that was the issue with SP2 was, we're really going to have to change some things,
right? And deliver some pain to customers from a user experience standpoint to protect them, and just we're going to have to collectively just kind of handle that. The worry for Microsoft here, of course, is that we already saw how poorly people responded, or customers, I should say, responded to what at the time felt like very artificial hardware requirements for Windows 11. This might instigate another escalation of that, which we should also put Copilot plus PC in the middle of that, by the way.
The kind of personality that keeps a Gen 10 computer alive is also the kind of personality that will complain bitterly that because it doesn't have a TPM2 chip in it. Like
I have at least 15 of those in my apartment right now. I understand that complaint, but so we'll see what happens. But if you, Copilot plus PC is in kind of a weird area right now because, 16 gigs RAM, 256 gigs storage, and the MPU are all expensive components now, and yikes. So, we'll see how they address it. This is
not a good year to make hardware demands while the pipelines are as screwed up as they are.
Yep. Oh, yeah. You're not going to hear a Windows 11 announcement. Well, at least certainly not a release this year. But if it, but obviously.
But the best I've gotten out of any sysadmin owning a large computer purchase is why am I paying for an NPU? Like, just no justification for it whatsoever. And they aren't cheap. Yeah. So they're still specifically going to the vendors and showing, show me your non-NPU systems. I have no need for that. It's not that they're not using AI, but they are. It's in the cloud, right?
It's almost like Intel correctly read the market somehow. That's not true. But but they have a bunch of NPU less or lower powered NPU based CPUs, of course, right? Like the non-Core Ultra stuff.
Yeah. But, I remember this with GPUs too, from, again, very much from an enterprise perspective. Sure, home machines was all about the gaming, and every new machine had a GPU in it. But when you were pricing hardware and they wanted a few $100s for this GPU that Windows wouldn't utilize unless you're in DirectX mode, which most companies would never be in, why in the world would I pay for this?
Yeah, I mean, if you accept, and you should, that consolidation is just the natural market for us, you can see it on all kinds of different levels. One of them would be on the component level, where you have a motherboard with a dozen different chips or add-in cards, whatever they are, and you can consolidate that into an SoC. I mean, Intel, I don't know if they were first, but Intel integrating graphics into their CPUs decades ago.
Yeah, well, I think they did it for exactly that reason. So you got to get a GPU to you guys somehow without charging you separately for it, so you can't take it out.
Right. And the first ones are terrible, right? Especially compared to dedicated graphics. They would be, but 20 years later, those things are actually pretty freaking great.
The new ones are certainly. That's just because the chips have gotten so good. But the joke the whole time with Iris and those early things was you weren't using them anyway, but at least there was a GPU on board. Yep.
Yeah, and we needed the GPU on board for things like the glass interface in Windows Vista. That kind of took resource or took demand away from the CPU, freed it up for other things, which improves overall performance. Obviously, dedicated.
You're now going to talk about Vista and how badly the video drivers went for that, because they also tried to uprate the quality of the video drivers, and none of the vendors wanted to do that.
Right. Which at least they're not trying to update drivers now. Oh boy.
I guess basically taking them over at this point, because it's just such a disaster.
I'm actually kind of surprised. We talked about WinHack last week and this driver initiative they have, and I just take over the drivers. Just do it.
Without a doubt.
Yeah, just do it. Not that Microsoft is the be all end all of high quality software, but.
But at least they have some incentive to do a better job. And then the trade here is you do have the NVIDIAs of the world that want to maximize utilization of their hardware. And so they will jump through the hoops to make a decent set of drivers rather than Microsoft. And then you have all of the little printer vendors and things like that who don't want to bother. They're always trying to put lower price.
Most of those are just someone slapping a brand on some ODM part, that is made in China and sold by 8 different companies. And
and
your quality will vary. Yeah. You don't want those guys making drivers. Anywho, with all that as backdrop, sorry for the history there, but so week D, Tuesday, got the preview updates. This is a preview literally of what we're going to see on Patch Tuesday in a couple of weeks in June. And last month, you may recall that Patch Tuesday was the first major Patch Tuesday, if you will, from a functional perspective, like new feature perspective. This one clearly will not be. So, this is we've talked about basically all of this. None of it is super important until we get to the end, but, shared audio support over a Bluetooth LE for supported devices, multi-app camera support, meaning you use one camera across multiple apps for camera hardware that supports that. This is where you can go and, when you're setting up a computer for the first time, there's a link in one of the screens where you can actually name your user account directory, which is one of those, you could kind of do this. And if you were automating this process, obviously you could do it, but putting that back in the UI, for the first time in 15 years, it's been a long time. You haven't been able to do that in a while. And then improvements across the board, like magnifier, the secure boot stuff that's in Windows Security, Task Manager, Windows Low, et cetera, et cetera.
But how much of this is just to be pointing the AI at the backlog of complaints about reliability and performance?
So we don't know. But that's a good point. So I think from well, just looking at the pain point thing, when Pavan Davalori talks about we want to do things like improve the latency that occurs when you click something and something opens, like the start menu or a file explorer, whatever. It's not a 1 second delay, but it's something you perceive and it makes it feel slow. So we talked, I think, last week about some of the things they're doing under the covers to improve like app and core system experience launches, right? Which is perfectly valid. You click something or hit a button, whatever it is, you expect that thing to occur. It will now occur faster. So there's actually a bunch of that in here. They didn't specify which bits, but performance improvements across those things, app and core system experience launches. And then reliability improvements across the board as well, but specifically for things like the sign-in and lock screens. And I hear this stuff, and look, I use Windows probably more than the average guy. I don't perceive these things. And I think part of it might just be I'm used to it, right? And that sometimes you need to be jolted out of this, right? Well, I'll talk a little bit more about this in the context of Linux in a little while, but going to like Snapdragon X based Windows and ARM computers, you suddenly realize, oh, this can be better, and I feel like some of this will do that for everybody, where you may not notice it, but what you will notice is you're not yelling at the computer as much, or, however you deal with these things. I mean, I do a lot of Tourette style yelling personally, but I think, look, it's valuable work. It's good to do. So nothing like I said, from a feature perspective, nothing major, but that's always good. I prefer that. Okay. Well, if we could just beat every topic to death like that, well, it'd go like 4 or 5 hours. So, right.
I'll tell you what. Let's pause since you have reached an
impasse,
a denouement, an impasse. Yep. I don't know, something.
Yep.
Be a good time to put in a word for our fine sponsor, and then we'll get back to more of Windows Weekly, if that's okay with everybody here. Okay. I see you hovering your finger over the skip button. Do not skip this. You're not going to want to miss this, because this episode of Windows Weekly brought to you by Trusted Tech. Now, you want to know about this, and I'll tell you why you want to know about this. If you're managing Microsoft 365 for your company and you're responsible for the cost, you're also responsible for whether it's set up correctly. You do know that things are going to change dramatically in a month. Somebody in our Discord said, wait, what? And I said, maybe everybody doesn't know that on July 1st, Microsoft's announced this, they're raising prices. And for you, that could mean, any mistakes in your licensing could get more expensive. It's not uncommon, and it's complicated. It's no reflection on you, but most companies are either overpaying Microsoft 365, they're over-licensed, paying for seats and features they don't use, or, and this might even be worse, under-licensed, which creates compliance and security risks. And there are cases, believe it or not, I had to think about this, where it's both. Like one department has too much, one department has too little. Either way, you're wasting thousands, sometimes tens of thousands of dollars per year on tools your team doesn't use, or worse, missing critical security features. You thought, well, we have those, right? No. So that's why you need Trusted Tech. They know licensing. This is their business. They help businesses understand what they have, what they actually need, and how to lock in the right setup now before costs go up. Trusted Tech's team will ensure your Microsoft 365 environment is well supported and aligned with how your business actually operates. That is what they do. And, it makes sense to go to a licensing expert to make sure that you've got this all right. By the way, that's not all they do. Trusted Tech also offers incredible certified support services. So if you need ongoing help, I want you to think about Trusted Tech too for reactive support for your Microsoft environment through their certified support services. But let's focus on licensing for this commercial. Microsoft licensing, well, it's a moving target, shall we say, E3 versus E5 versus Business Premium. There's add-ons, there's a new E7. It's very confusing. It's easy to misconfigure. It's easy to overpay or underpay, because licensing mistakes don't just cost money. They can create compliance exposure that is going to get more expensive in a month after July 1st. So even if you think your license is dialed in, it's worth looking a second time. Get a second opinion. And you know who says it's a good idea? Kevin Turner. I know you know that name, former Microsoft COO. He was talking to Trusted Tech. I got this great quote. He said, it's talking to Trusted Tech now. You have an incredible customer reputation, and you have to earn that every single day. The relentless focus you guys have on taking care of customers gives them value and differentiates you in the marketplace. He loves Trusted Tech. You will too. Just remember this. If nothing else, are you glad you didn't skip? After July 1st, you are stuck paying more. This is the last chance to fix your licensing before costs go up, and Trusted Tech will do it. In fact, they're offering a free Microsoft 365 licensing consultation right now. Visit trustedtech.team/Windows Weekly 365. Get a clear data-backed view of your current licenses, what you're wasting, and how to lock in savings before the price increase. Go to trustedtech.team/Windows Weekly 365 and submit a form to get in contact with Trusted Tech's Microsoft licensing engineers. trustedtech.team/Windows Weekly 365. Thank you, Trusted Tech, for the work you do, for supporting us. And aren't you glad you didn't skip this one? I know, Paul, you don't have licensing issues.
I was thinking that calling this podcast Windows Weekly 365 might not be a horrible idea.
Well, we only do it 52 times a year, though, so maybe Windows Weekly 52. And you're responsible for the remaining 312.
Yeah, I was going
to. That's all on you, man. All on you. All right. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt. Please.
All right.
Onward and upward, Mr. T.
So the party line is that Microsoft is simplifying the Windows Insider program. And, yeah, if you're doing a flyby, I guess it is simpler. But it's not really, right? Like there are, these sub channels and other choices you can make inside of all the channels. If you've ever, or if you've recently enrolled a PC in this and or have switched over to this new scheme, you'll discover that there are actually more permutations now than there used to be. In the good news department, there's a couple of things. One of the things is that you can easily move out of a channel and into stable if you want, or another channel that's good. It's a little bit portable. You can enable feature flags to turn on all the features you're getting, so you don't have to wait for them, like for a CFR. That's good, but it's complicated. And they've changed the way that they announce builds. So if you go to blogs.windows.com, there's a Windows Insider Program header, and you can see just the articles that are from that part. And they just do like a single blog post for all the builds. And if I'm counting this correctly, and I'm not, there are at least 4 builds, but the announcement makes it seem like we just, made changes to beta and experimental, which we put the mental and experimental because there are multiple sub channels, right? So there's at least 4. I could be missing one. You have to go and look at I think they're on Microsoft Learn. Let me just make sure. Yeah, Microsoft Learn, which I thought was going away, by the way, but has details about each of the builds that they announced. This is from Friday. And this is tough reading. So let's see, how do I say this? So the the experimental channel, future platforms, right? That's one of the sub channels. This is what used to be literally Canary.
What Canary was supposed to be, but never was.
No, it's what Canary was now, sadly. It includes platform changes. And there's no features. And it's like, oh, yeah, no, we've been here before. It's like,
the experiment is, if you notice, we changed the name.
Yep. And it's like the features and experiences might never get released. This does not map to a specific okay, close the tab. Okay. And then there's experimental for 26H1. And it's like, okay. And, reliability of Explorer EXE, nice. Okay, switching between multiple desktops is going to be a bit of great. There's fixes across the board. This low-level stuff. I mean, not literally, there's a fix for the Times New Roman font family in here. I'd like, yikes. Okay, if you care about diacritical marks and the like, then you will enjoy that. And it's not till we get into experimental, just experimental. Oh, no, sorry, that's not true. Experimental dev, what used to be dev. I guess it's experimental. So there's some narrated, there's a bunch of accessibility stuff. I think this was tied to an accessibility holiday or whatever, or day that we marked last week or whatever. But there's a couple of things in here, nothing major, although I will say, let me see if this computer has it. I bet it does. If you go into the settings app and go to display, and it's probably, no, it's right there under brightness and color, you may see an option called adaptive color. If you're familiar with the way phones work and a lot of Apple devices, you know that the screen has sensors around it or in it that will detect the ambient lighting and adapt the color so that it looks true to the color to you, no matter what the lighting condition is. This sounds awesome. If you've ever used this in Windows, you know that what it does is it makes your screen pink. So, I'll just put it on. Yeah, it's terrible. So, I always turn it off. You see the pink and you're like, no, this is terrible. What? So they're adding an accessibility feature called screen tint. And what this does is basically overlay a color over the entire screen that can do things like soften the intensity of the light, but whatever. It's an interesting idea. It's probably it's like not adaptive brightness or lighting. It's like manual lighting. It's something you have to do yourself. But honestly,
is it for a particular kind of a vision impairment that it goes pink?
So like a lot of accessibility features, probably. It's not for like color blind people or anything like that, but there probably are people with specific eye issues that may benefit from this. But I feel like a lot of people, like if you've ever done like the orange light thing, like you do night light or whatever it's called on Windows or on a phone or whatever, a lot of the first reaction to that is like, oh, the screen's all orange, and then after a while you're like, actually, I kind of like this. It's nice, and I think it's that kind of an
especially
effect.
At night. Yeah, no, I've definitely.
Yeah, like you want it to, one of the, I feel like this is already there. So night light warms your display to reduce blue light. Screen tint reduces overall screen intensity, which eases eye fatigue and light sensitivity even during the day. So, yeah, I think there are going to be people who are like, yeah, no, I want it to be like this all the time.
Right.
So there's that. And there's also, if you've ever used voice access or the what do you call it? Whatever the translation feature is called, where you're having a meeting and there's a bar at the top of the screen and someone's talking in a different language, and you can have it automatically translate in real time. Really cool. But also that thing is, from a UI perspective, is predicated on the fact that the taskbar is at the bottom of the screen, and now the taskbar can be moved to the top of the screen. So I'm kind of curious how it's going to impact those UIs. I'm sure or
to the left side is or
whatever. Yeah, I mean, just like it's kind of interesting. We'll see how Microsoft handles that stuff.
Definitely complexities.
So beta and dev. I'm sorry, that's not true. Experimental, which used to be dev, and then beta, both are getting the same accessibility features. So those are changing.
So it's not part of experiment. It's not. But it is part of experimental.
It is, but also
experimental was dev and experimental wasn't Canary.
Right. There's an experimental future platforms that essentially is what Canary used to be.
Okay.
There's an experimental, which is kind of a new kind of Canary that makes a little more sense than Canary ever did. There's experimental by itself, but then again, you have the 3 different Windows versions it could be, which is basically what dev was.
Are you up to 3 kinds of experimental at this point? Are we having naming problems?
I'm just saying, like I said, creeping complexity. Just complexity. I don't know. It's not even creeping. It's just complexity. There's a lot of it. Just don't look at that too hard. So the more you look at it, the scarier it gets. Okay, so that's happening. Again, nothing major, frankly, right? So there's no Copilot buttons or anything. That's good. And then this isn't related to anything product or whatever, but Yusuf Mehdi, who's been at Microsoft for 35 years, announced this past week that he is going to retire later this year.
Another long timer.
One of the longest timers of all, really. I mean, when he joined Microsoft, he worked on Windows initially, but I remember him from all kinds of different things. And this is the thing, like he kept coming up for me. So when this was not my first time going out to see Microsoft, but maybe my second or third time. I went out in 1998. I went to Seattle for what was the Windows NT 5.0 Beta 2 Reviewers Workshop. I met the people I would later work with at Windows NT Magazine, like Mike Odie and Mark Manassi and so forth. And Yusuf Mehdi was on the stage before the event started, setting up something. So I went up and I asked him, first of all, who are you? And secondly, is Dave Cutler going to be here? And he told me that no, Dave was off working on 64-bit stuff with DEC processors, which at the time I assume was like Alpha, or whatever.
Probably Alpha.
And okay, so that was kind of cool. So that was the first time I ever interacted with him, but I kept bumping into him again and again. So he worked on Internet Explorer. So it was the big part of that. He led, I think, Bing and MSN at a time when Bing and MSN were what later became things like, Windows Essentials and so forth. Like these were the things like MSN Messenger. And like they had like the blog, whatever the blogging product they had was, like the blog editor and whatever it was. It was all these like kind of smaller apps, but they were like Windows utilities, and they kind of made Windows better. They weren't included in Windows so they could be updated more frequently. He was a big part of that. So I interviewed him at that time. He worked on, they didn't call it Xbox briefly, but it was interactive entertainment, which when the Xbox One was coming out, the Xbox was going entertainment. It was going to be music and videos and TV stuff and all that kind of stuff. And then he returned to Windows proper and was part of Windows and Devices. And that's when, with Surface, right? And then has been promoted up the chain. And today he is the consumer chief marketing officer for Microsoft, which he's been
which I find interesting because he was always a product guy.
So the through line here for me is, I agree with you. Yep, 100%. Oh, and I should say the last thing was he was the person on stage when they introduced what we now call Copilot. So when that thing was updates to Bing Search and Microsoft Edge, he was the guy. And the thing that will always stick in the back of my craw is he was doing demos, and he said, I am going to Mexico City in a few months for my sister's wedding, I think it was, and we can use AI to make an itinerary. And he had to make a 5-day itinerary for Mexico City, a place I know really well, right? And so for at least 2 years after that, that was the first thing I did in any AI chatbot was, let's do a 5-day itinerary for Mexico City, because one of the things I saw immediately with what became Copilot when they first announced it was that this thing had no sense of how far things were from each other, and it would recommend these days where first drive 90 minutes out into the desert and go to these pyramids. That's awesome. Now come back to the city, but go to the far end on the other side of the city and have dinner in Polanco, and then go down to Centro, which is kind of in the middle of this. It's like, guys, this is not a day. Like, this is a week. Like this is not going to work. And AI, has obviously gotten a lot better at that.
Not so good. You still can debate whether you should take your car to the car wash when you could walk.
Okay. Yusuf is on the senior leadership team, which is kind of incredible. This is something like Panos Panay was not on the senior leadership team. If I'm not
really
mistaken.
a thing to be on the SLT.
So, I like you. I think of him as specific kind of product things, but when I look at this now and I think about Microsoft and the way it has evolved literally in the 35 years he's been there, he has gone against the grain. Almost everything he's done has essentially been consumer based, which is kind of crazy. Now, back in the 90s, especially the early days when, from whatever year that was, 92, 93 through, Windows 95 and the IE stuff, there was no real division between consumer, business, whatever. In fact, no, most of it was just really consumer if you think about it. But at some point that, especially as NT became a thing, and then Windows 2000 and the enterprise stuff started, eventually happened. I mean, there was that real divide between consumer and business, and he's pretty much always been on the consumer side of this, which is incredible for anyone at Microsoft, but for someone who's been there for 35 years, he doesn't even have one little dog leg into, I worked on SQL Server for a little while, or I worked on Exchange or whatever, like something purely enterprise based. Like, no, it's not really there.
It speaks to him ending up owning the marketing problem for consumer.
Yeah, I think it's interesting.
It is interesting. It's unusual for sure.
Yeah.
Especially Microsoft is like, that's not where the money was either.
Yeah. I don't know this guy like personally or anything like that. He seems like a good guy to me. He seems legitimately engaged with this part of the world, however you want to say that. I mean, he seems like a good person, but it's just interesting. He's kind of dipped in and out of my professional life half a dozen times or more. I don't know, over many of those 35 years. Interesting. Okay.
There was a question in the chat about Windows 10 extended support.
Okay. What is it?
Well, it's just like how long we're going to get extended support for.
They did extend it, right? For like a year.
Well, for consumers, it's for 1 year. And then for businesses, it's 3 years, but you pay per year and the price doubles each year, right? It's
going to keep going up. Yeah.
So so this
starting in October.
So Stacy was Higginbotham, who was the woman who, of course, our good friend who wrote that Consumer Reports letter to Microsoft.
Right.
It was kind of ignored, but she says she thinks they're going to extend it again.
I bet you I will. It all depends on seat count. Microsoft's really good at leading the parade by figuring out which way it's going and running in front. Right? So it's all about seat count.
Nobody. Yeah. I mean, I understand why you want to deprecate a version. Sure. You don't want to support it anymore. I completely understand.
Well, especially think about the wave of bug fixes for security they're going through right now. You really want to push this onto all the versions of Windows? That's not fun.
So here's a fun, well, maybe it's fun, I don't know, bit of speculation that just popped into my brain based on what the thing you just asked about extended security updates. And also the earlier conversation about Windows 12 potentially happening down the pike. And that side issue, which is not a side issue, is really the central issue of our industry right now, where we have this component crisis, right? Where hardware components are extremely expensive, especially things like RAM and storage. And, the Windows 11, which by the way, now is almost 6 years old, right? I think was it 2020 or 2021? It was 21, could have been whatever year it was, we'll call it 5 years. Came under some criticism for having what felt like artificial hardware requirements, like I said, which felt like to many people a bid by Microsoft to get people to buy new computers, right? And look, these criticisms write themselves. It's fine. You come out with Copilot Plus PC where you specify even higher system requirements. And, for someone like me, I think for people who watch the show, like regardless of what you think about AI or Copilot or anything like that stuff, like, 16 gigs of RAM is a minimum, nice, modern, fast SSD, MPU, whatever. That didn't amount to much, but I mean, whatever. It is what it is. Those processors are great regardless of the MPU, but whatever. Especially when you go to ARM and you get all the reliability, whatever benefits of that. But
they're shaving off of the crufty bits of code because it just never got implemented for ARM.
Right. Which has its own benefit, right? I mean, this is not something Microsoft naturally does. So not being, like looking at something like a new hardware architecture and having to make those decisions is actually very good for Microsoft and for its customers because it's maybe doing things it might not otherwise have even thought about. But what if this is the speculation bit. So given everything I just said, what if there is a Windows 11 upgrade coming for Windows 10 users that will be supported, that will have lower hardware requirements because that's the reality of today. And that if you can build like we know, like Chewy is one of the PC makers that's using, I think it's called the Intel Wildcat processors. These are the new generation low-end things that are supposed to compete with like a MacBook Neo or whatever. So you've got Apple selling a MacBook Neo for $600 to consumers running on a phone chip. What if we could throw a bone to our user base in Windows, which is different from that on the Mac side or Apple side, whatever, and do two things. Like one, better support lower end hardware, right? Whether it's Wildcat or whatever else. And that would include older processors that maybe don't make their way into the Windows 11, hardware requirements. That the way forward that might make sense for Microsoft from a support perspective is just have Windows 11 be the thing. Actually do get rid of Windows 10. I mean, they're still going to be putting those updates up for businesses, so maybe this makes no sense. But it'd be kind of interesting if there was it would be Windows 11, like it would have the UI. It would, it wouldn't require a TPM 2.0, let's say. It would maybe a 1.2 would be fine or something, or maybe even no TPM if that's what you're doing.
But with all these concerns around security, like they picked the TPM chip requirement for a reason. It really is the base level of needing security going forward.
Right. But it is. No, and I would say, look, a lot of the security advances that have occurred over the past year, especially, but year and a half, 2 years, whatever, do require a TPM 2.0.
Sure.
You know, the stuff we see in Copilot plus PC around virtualization-based security and the Windows Hello ESS stuff requires TPM 2.0. So yes, but not everyone has those things. Those things are expensive to make and sell now. Maybe there's some version of the future where...
But wait, Microsoft said you have to have TPM 2.0.
Right. Microsoft says a lot of things, Leo. I find it's usually smart just to let it. Well, it is. So when Windows 11 was first announced, you didn't actually need any of that stuff, right? Oh. Windows 11 was Windows 10 with a new, shell essentially or whatever. Today, yes, there are, especially Copilot plus PC. There are features that are integral to Windows that are important for security that rely on a TPM 2.0. Yeah, for sure.
And TPM 2.0 has been out since 2014.
It's been a while. It's reasonable to say by now.
Yeah. So there's no way to really. I mean, maybe I should.
Is it even that expensive? I mean, isn't it just on the system on a chip?
Yeah. No. What we're saying is you have a laptop. It's a 10th gen Intel something. It's 10 years old. I don't know what is it. I don't actually know. So let's pretend it's a TPM 1.2 in there.
Oh,
right?
I see.
You can't upgrade that thing.
Right.
So in other words.
Let's have a version.
Let's acknowledge that there are millions and millions of computers out in the world.
Right.
That just don't meet these specs.
And they work perfectly well. And you don't want to put them on the landfill.
And is there some version of this where it makes sense? So the other version would be just let consumers do ESU for 2 more years or 3, whatever the time frame is, right? That's the simplest one.
There was a requirement for TPM2 for Windows 11, and he complained if you didn't have it,
right?
But it didn't stop you from installing.
Yeah,
you can still, you can work around it. You can use Rufus or whatever to work around it right now if you want to, right? Just like you can work around the local account sign-in stuff or whatever. By the way, but I mean, I'm just saying but for mainstream people who don't care about this, don't think about it, like whatever. Would it make sense? I thought it did when they came out with Windows 11. I didn't understand this cutoff, but look, you're already supporting 2,
You're saying there should be an S version. Basically,
maybe. Yeah, I don't know what to call it. I'm not even sure if it may. I just thought of this as we were talking. I'm not sure. This might not be fully formed.
I agree with you. I think it's a good idea. I mean, that's how you compete against Chromebooks. That's how you compete against the Neo. That's what Windows S was supposed to be.
Yeah, the point of this is that it would work on new lower end devices, which are coming to market. We know, like I said, ChewieBook is one of the companies that is making.
It's a terrible name, by the way.
It's terrible. It's a terrible name. Unless you like Wookiees, And there are others, obviously, but whatever. That's the one they've been making kind of a splash. And then, but you know what? But when you look at that level, like if we're going to go back to 8 gigs of RAM, if we're going to go have a lower end, what we might have called the Celeron processor, right? Yeah, it's a different operating system. I mean, whatever.
It can live with it, right?
Well, but is there a version of this? Well, they're fixing Windows, right? I mean, that work that's occurring in Windows to let it run better with fewer resources would benefit these older computers, right? That probably do have 8 gigs of RAM and whatever generation Intel processor that somebody arbitrarily decided wasn't going to make it to Windows 11. Like maybe this is the time.
Especially if you like Wookiees.
Especially if you like Wookiees. Who doesn't like Wookiees?
It's completely parenthetically, I remember that whole kerfuffle from Linux people about TPM and all this stuff.
Right.
Ironically, my framework desktop, which runs Windows or Linux, does have a TPM2 chip. And I was just investigating whether I could retroactively put Lux encryption on it. And then I realized, but I don't want to have to enter a password. So I want it to come back up if the power goes out and I'm not here because it runs my AI. It's continuously running. So that's the problem with encryption. And my AI said, well, here's good news. You got a TPM2 something chip and it'll log in automatically from the TPM2 chip. It'll still check to make sure the machine hasn't been modified. And if somebody pulls the hard drive and tries to get into it, it won't work because it's not connected to the...
Right. And that's the way the system's supposed to work.
And it works in Linux.
Right. I mean, Leo, that's the secret that no one told you from Microsoft. That's why they made it, so it would work in Linux.
It's great. Yeah. Good job, Microsoft. Well done.
This was
I was very pleased.
Everyone sort of remembers the history of MS-DOS or Windows or whatever isn't done until Lotus doesn't run kind of thing.
Right. And of course, Linux is a cancer, which is
Linux is a cancer. But I mean, I feel like by the time TPM harming the ability of a user to dual boot or switch to Linux was a a happy side effect, not the point of it. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't the strategy, but it was
kind of an accident.
Yeah, it was a happy accident.
Take it.
You know, yeah,
take it.
But yeah,
no, I was really pleased. I thought, oh, that's fantastic. See, what Linux does, which is great, is they see where the hardware is and they go in and meet it. You know, somebody writes a driver and says, okay, well, if we're going to have TPM, we might as well.
Oh, this is why you get things like the ability to read write to NTFS volumes or whatever it is. You know, like
yeah, and pretty much everybody who runs Linux is running on a Windows machine. I mean, you know,
of course,
that's a PC.
Mm-hmm.
So
better
work.
You know, putting Windows 11
I'll shut up now. I know I'm introducing.
No, the main thing I think they're all about the security side of this right now, and
oh man, are we? Holy cow!
Because it's such a crisis, and that's
get ready.
And so
that might be an argument to this thing I just made up in my brain, which is we're doing this work to harden Windows 11 and other platforms that are in active use like Azure, et cetera. Maybe this is the line, like where it doesn't actually make sense to do that for Windows 10 as well.
Right.
But if we can harden Windows 11 and
11,
right. Yep.
That's the argument.
And then you deliver good news to look. Nobody actually wants to upgrade. That's part of the problem too. But the reality is, if you could do this for free and it actually worked great and worked better, I guess, and was secure, et cetera, and was supported, I think a lot of people would be pretty happy with that. So it's an idea.
It'd be a good move, and arguably the easier move is just fix 10.
That's the question.
One of the problems though is that few companies want to be in the low end market. More support.
I think this is all for used older hardware. This is not for selling new machines.
Yeah, this is almost like fan service, right? You have this user base that is feeling upset that you've arbitrarily, in their minds, whether it's fair or not, kind of cut them off from the latest thing, which you don't want anyway, honestly. But whatever, we have to have something to complain about. I mean, it's an idea. I'm not actually saying, I don't literally mean like. This thing I thought of 10 seconds ago makes total sense. I don't think I've worked through all. But
you're right. There's this line. There's this intersection point of if we don't fix the Win 10 machines that are still out there, they're going to be exploited, and we're going to take heat for it. Like there's just no two ways about that.
Right.
So do we fix Win 10, or do we make some other offering and a Win 11? I think somebody said SE. For secure edition, okay, or simple edition.
There's a secure edition, nice.
Right.
Okay.
Is the other way to tackle that?
I think people would love it too, because they'd be like, "Look, this is the version of Windows 11 that doesn't have any of that Copilot crap." Well, and then people like with modern computers were like, "I want to run SE too." So we'll see. I just made this up. This is not happening. I don't know. I just think this stuff is going through my brain right now, but. It's an idea. And if you think about the Windows 10 support schedule as a 10-year thing and sort of a 13-year thing, but it's this whatever continuum of time. We're at like the 11th hour in this thing. Like this is not what Microsoft wants from a schedule perspective, a major security initiative to harden a thing they're actively trying to get rid of right now. And to spend the time and the money and the effort and whatever. To do that too, I'm not sure which is worse, right? Like doing that work or letting those guys go to some, I guess, new version of Windows 11, which nobody wanted to make either. So
it's fun to do the math and go, or ship them a NUC with the TPM.
right. Or just like a USB stick that has a TPM on it or something.
Being in a performance argument over a game where it's like, this might be cheaper to just ship everybody more RAM.
ship RAM with the game.
Yeah, and the comes more RAM for your computer because it was that trying to get the game down to
hysterical. Just put a RAM stick in every box.
But that's it was one of the ways we drew it on the whiteboard of how we were making the ROI
hysterical.
Choices, right?
Well, they sort of did this before, right? I mean, in Windows Vista, because it was kind of top heavy compared to its predecessors, they came up with something called Windows Ready Drive, which is a way you could stick in any USB key at the time and use it as basically cache. Like it was a way to kind of speed up the system, like, I don't know, maybe there's I don't know. They wouldn't be a USB. Well, maybe it would be. I don't know. Maybe there's a way today for something similar. I don't know. I just make stuff up.
I don't know. I've heard people say it's just an idea.
Word on the street. And then just a couple of hardware earnings type things. Lenovo, which is the world's biggest maker of computers, had a blockbuster quarter, actually.
Killing it.
A lot of records here. Net income is $521 million, which is not a lot, but compared to the $21.6 billion of revenues. But that speaks to a couple of things. One is, the low margin nature of PCs, but also the cost of building out its AI infrastructures, which is where a lot of the growth is coming from, right? That said, PC revenues, you got to remember, this is the second calendar. No, it isn't. No, it's technically the first calendar quarter of 2026, right? Yeah. Let me see. Does it end March? I think they kind of announced this a little late. Yeah, ending March 31. So the first calendar quarter. This is a time when the PC refresh cycle was over, essentially. Like people had been pre-buying PCs, et cetera, because of component price increases, et cetera. But that business grew 26% year over year, revenue-wise. Largest growth in 5 years. It's the biggest PC business in the world, 24.4% market share. This is the largest gap between the first and second player in this market in over 15 years. Right now, I don't know off the top of my head what HP's market share is, but let's call it 20, or it could be as high as 21, 20, even 22. But the gap between HP and Lenovo, which 15 years ago, I think HP would have been actually number one, but whatever. The gap between number one and number two in this market is bigger right now than it's ever been. Over 50% of Lenovo's sales of PCs in the quarter were premium PCs, which of course have higher margins for the first time. Right. I mean, they think they have ThinkPad. That's maybe not surprising, but they sell IdeaPad and Yoga and whatever. They just have Lenovo branded PCs as well. That business was almost 15 billion of the almost 22 billion the company made overall, but the vast majority of the rest of it was the infrastructure part of the company, which is the AI data center stuff. Yeah, that's going great. They're talking all the words. They have an AI server business pipeline of blah 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 and more than what.
I guess that's the question: is I'm presuming they're still following GAAP. So this is gear they shipped, not gear on order.
So the revenues are revenue. So it kind of doesn't, as long as someone paid for it, I guess it doesn't matter. But what they're talking about, what are they talking about? They have over 5,800 customers that are doing AI deployments in data centers. And okay, I don't think of Lenovo that way, but whatever. And then they have a services group that's another almost 3 billion. But
we always think of Lenovo as the ThinkPad guys because they got the ThinkPad business, and then they did really cool things with it. Like they're the crazy laptop guys.
Yeah, no, they've been.
This one folds over backwards.
They have been the best caretaker of this brand imaginable.
They also let their designers go nuts. Like they make origami computers. Like, look, this one folds into a crane. Like it's crazy.
It's crazy mostly because they are the biggest company in the space, and it doesn't make sense for them not to just be conservative. They're making rolling screen laptops that go in either direction. I love that they do this stuff.
Yeah, it's awesome. Actually, it's really cool.
It is, yeah. And then there's NVIDIA, which, they're doing okay. I don't know how they keep doing this. Well, actually, I do. In the gigantic industry circle jerk that is AI, there's only one company that's actually making money, like literally making money. Yeah. And I mean, literally getting money from other companies. And it's NVIDIA, right? Because they make these GPUs that power all these data centers. Yeah. But the growth numbers, you keep thinking it's got to slow down.
Well, just from a manufacturing perspective, right? So that's why I keep pushing on this.
They don't even sell in China. They can't. They've given up on China.
Yeah. It's just a question of how are they accounting for this? Like when does the manufacturing pipeline just not keep up?
They could put this money in a passbook savings account and would never go out of business. Like it is astonishing. it's just a mountain
of money.
Yeah, it's stupid. Yeah. So, 81.6 billion in revenues, corporate record for that quarter, by the way, is a gain of 85% year over year. I didn't look at this, but it was 70-something% this quarter last year. And it was 70-something percent like how? But
no, and valued at 5 trillion. Like
it's a 5 trillion, probably.
Yeah.
This business is so big, they're actually going to split what is this? I think they just call it data center, 2 words. into different groups because they're going to try to explain like where money's coming from now. So they're going to have like a hyperscale business and a AI cloud industrial and enterprise business. So that'll be fun. I don't know. It doesn't matter. You can spread this money out however you want. You're never going to run out of it. It's just astonishing. I've never seen anything like this company. Well,
yeah, $5 trillion valuations.
No, not to this level. It's crazy. Okay. Did Laurent ever rate the open? No, he didn't. Okay. Moving into AI and dev a little bit. We didn't write this up yet, but Google announced sometime in the past 24 hours that they're adding Google Drive Sync to NotebookLM, which is like, yeah, duh. And I feel like this might be workspace specific. I don't know if this is how it works for consumers. I should look into this, but this makes sense. In other words, you can bring your NotebookLM is a lot of things, but one of the things it is like a notebook, right? And it's really for research. You pull in things into a project like documents or whatever it is, or links to websites and stuff, and it uses that as the context, and it can ignore the rest of the world and do a great job with that. And then it creates, like infographics and whatever you want to do with this stuff. But you could also just use it as kind of a general purpose kind of note-taking app. It's part of the complexity that is Google today because they have so much stuff. But having that sync over Google Drive
every day,
to me makes a lot of sense. One thing I've never done, but as Laurent was talking to me about today, it's like we might want to look into this, is Google has this preferred sources feature in Google search where you can go in and configure like the sites you trust and have those maybe coloring the results a bit, by coming out near the top or whatever. Right. And I've never even looked at this. So I'm going to ask our Robert, our web guy, about this.
That's interesting.
Yeah. And I don't know that I would have, I've seen it and I don't think too much of it, but now they're adding that to AI mode and AI overview, which are two Google search features, which arguably are the future or even the present of Google search. So, having a formal thing, like we need to have a button, like on the page or something, like we don't have that. So there's a way you can just go, you can add any site you want. You can just go into preferences and Google search to do that. But it's possible. This is something.
At some point, do we have templates of sources? It's like,
right. Like trusted tech sources maybe, or whatever. Yeah. That's like playlists almost.
But it's also, this is the bubble I want to live in. Is there a list already made for me?
Yeah, probably actually. Yeah. Right. But that's a good idea.
I want the all conspiracy theory list. How about that? Can you give me that list? Right. Every response refers to a conspiracy theory. Or what if my only trusted source is The Onion?
Nice. I want a whimsical view of the world, like the world I wish it was, not the world that is.
That's it. Yeah.
Which I actually kind of do, by the way. This one came out of the blue, and I don't know that they have a formal announcement about this anywhere, but they contacted me and a bunch of others. But DuckDuckGo says that their usage across their search service, Duck.ai, their mobile apps, et cetera, has gone up dramatically in the wake of Google I/O, which of course was this AI announcement tsunami last week that I'm still trying to recover from.
Yeah.
And this is like basically people who are like, because, this is the reaction, right? You either look at this as the greatest thing that ever happened, or you're like, oh God,
this is the end of the world.
I need to find something else. And so people are starting to look around, right?
Yeah.
And, in the US, average growth of their DuckDuckGo mobile app, up over 18%. Peak growth during the holiday weekend, long weekend, 30%.
Wow.
Usage on iPad was average growth of 33% and peak growth of 69.9% on May 25, which I think was Sunday. Crazy. They have a version of their
I wonder if it's a number large enough for. Yeah, I just wonder if Google notices. Like, are you?
Yeah. So
at Google I/O, is your traffic actually down in a meaningful way, or is just DuckDuckGo small enough that those increases don't measure meaningfully to Google?
Yeah. So these are meaningful for DuckDuckGo. What you're asking is the loss meaningful to Google? I would guess and say probably not. But then again, you also have to be paying attention to this, right?
Sure.
The DuckDuckGo literally quotes the federal judge in US v. Google, who says Google is a monopolist. It has acted to maintain its monopoly, and monopolies do not worry about users leaving. So, There you go. I mean, it's interesting. So I mean, good for them. DuckDuckGo is great.
Yeah, no, and again, it's like it's interesting to see where people are at. That there is a place for the non-AI position.
Yeah, I don't have that kind of non-AI position, but I will say I know in Helium and somewhere else I've been using DuckDuckGo a lot lately. Not by any design, it's just it must be in Helium.
I paid for Kaggy for the year just to live in a different search world, you know.
But if you use Google Search, like one of the things you'll see at the top of search results is this kind of AI overview.
AI results,
it spits out whatever it spits out. It's like a little summary of whatever. And it has links and whatever, but you're meant to just get the answer right there. And the way that DuckDuckGo does this is kind of interesting. I didn't realize it wasn't Google at first, right? So I'm like, oh, they scaled this back a little bit. And there's like an AI overview section at the top, unless you specify no AI. And you have to expand it to see that stuff. So it doesn't actually spew out all the AI by default. It only does it when you ask for it. Which honestly is not a horrible approach. And then just generally speaking, when it comes to switching from anything to anything, the big blocker, generally speaking, is when you notice things are bad or different in a way you don't like. You always notice that, and then you just kind of go back because you're like, I can't deal with it. Like, and that would be the experience with like Brave Search or DuckDuckGo Search or whatever at any time where, in the past especially, I should say, where you're like, well, I want to use this thing, I'm going to try it, and then or Bing was like this, like you search for things and you're like, no,
that's not right. No,
and I still sometimes I've done this at least twice in the past, 5 days ish, like where some search result comes up and you're like, no. And then you go google.com and you type it in again, you paste it in, and it's like, yeah, there it is. And that's the trick.
Certainly had that experience with Kaggy where I'm like, no.
Yeah. So I mean, but if you're
the average mortal consumer who ended up with the default of Google in the first place,
right?
Are they going to then now sees the AI blurb and goes, this offends me? Are they going to switch off the AI blurb? Like they didn't want to change any settings anyway. What's easier, switching off the AI blurb or switching to DuckDuckGo?
So if you want to do it in Google, if I'm not mistaken, I think you have to do like a particular URL trick where you type in a couple of characters or something to make that not happen or something like that. It's not like a switch like in the UI. Maybe it is.
DuckDuckGo is actually easier.
DuckDuckGo is like we literally have a page that is never any AI. Like you can do it that way.
Yeah.
But I would say to your point though, like if you pay for Kaggy, you have the situation where whatever. I don't know whatever percent, 10%, 5%, whatever it is, where you're like, no, and you actually have to go to Google.
Yeah.
If that's not 50%, if it's like a tiny one, single digit, that's okay, right? I mean, it
has happened, but not much more than that.
That's what I mean. Like not enough to make you go, no, I'm not doing this anymore. So like the goal, look, you have to be realistic. Like you're not going to completely remove Google from your life if that's your goal.
Yeah.
But you can minimize your exposure to it, and that's one way to do it. So,
that was the whole thing is let's make Kaggy the default and spend the
and then
hour going from machine to set up the account, pay for it, then go to the phone and to the PCs and just okay, this is now my default. When I type into the search bar, go to Kaggy first.
Well, and a lot of browsers don't even have Kaggy as an option, so it's kind of it's more of a pain than it really seems like. So but I did it because I care.
I battled through it. I just wanted the experience.
Well, most people won't. Most people won't.
And,
we know that.
And I committed to a year, right? Just buy for the year. When the renewal comes up, we'll see.
Yeah.
And I look, in my case, it's got to be Helium because I've been installing different computers. Helium doesn't have any kind of like a settings
syncing. Yeah.
So you have to you do it from scratch every time, which in my case is a little painful because, lots of computers. For most people, who cares? But I have to say, I have noticed it. I've noticed like DuckDuckGo is the default, I guess, and that's fine. And I think the first time I ever used the browser, I probably did switch to Google at the time, but I haven't since then. It's fine, and yes, sometimes. All right, google.com, whatever the thing is. I wish I could remember an exact thing because there was some search I just did. It might have been this morning where I knew what I was looking for. I just didn't know where to go to find the thing. And it wasn't coming up in the first, 5 or 8, whatever. And I was like, come on, I know this is going to be right at the top of Google. And it was,
Yeah.
But that's,
Here's the kind of underlying issue, though, is that both Kaggy and DuckDuckGo rely heavily on Google's index. They license Google's index.
Sure.
Right.
Google could at any point just say, Yeah, guys, we're not.
Right. So right. I mean, the one. Well, a couple of things to that. I mean, first
nobody's
of all,
doing their own spidering.
No, of course not. I mean, but anything that Apple's approach to AI so far on the iPhone has been like you can use ChatGPT. It will be anonymous. You can sign in if you want. You don't have to. And I think, and you see that with not private. You see that with like smaller AI chatbots where it may be going off to ChatGPT or whatever it is, but you don't have to sign into it. You could be anonymous, like Proton I think does this kind of thing with Lumo or whatever it might be. So if smaller search engines are using the Google stuff, but you're not getting all the Google whatever it is, AI overviews and stuff you don't want, I mean, that's okay, right? I mean, it's because you can't you can't spin up a new Google tomorrow. Like this is like they
I mean, everybody's trying to. I think both Kagi and
right?
DuckDuckGo are trying to, but yeah, that's a
just use DeepSeek. They stole it all. It's all fine. You're fine. Let's just do that. It's all going to change. But as of today, it's like, look, the goal is to minimize it for a lot of people. I mean, and trying to be realistic about it. It's like, look, okay, maybe they're using us in the back end or whatever. I don't care. I'm not signing into my Google account. They're not, they don't know who I am.
There's no AI. I think
there's no AI. One a big reason. That's going to be a draw for people. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. That's fine. Yeah. It's not perfect. I mean, nothing's perfect. What's perfect? It
doesn't have any AI. This show doesn't have any AI.
No, not that you know, but I've actually been an AI construct for 7 months. I'm actually asleep in a bed right now.
I figure the day will come when I won't show up for work.
Right.
But you won't know.
It will just happen.
And I think that day is not far off.
There's a horrible show on
Leo
Amazon
get 7
Prime.
fingers.
Have you heard of this thing, Scarpetta?
I watched it. I liked it. See, it's another Nicole Kidman.
Yeah, who doesn't look like anything like Nicole Kidman anymore, which I find bizarre. But we've only watched
the woman who plays her young self on Scarpetta looks more like Nicole Kidman.
I kind of wish it was just about her, frankly. But
she was great. I loved her.
Yeah, I thought she was very good. Actually, a lot of the actors are great. It's not that. The first 2 episodes, which is all I've seen, is
you just don't like the bad Boston accent. I know.
No. Actually, that guy's really from Boston. Although the guy who plays the younger version of him is not. But Lenny Clark is a famous Boston stand-up comedian.
Oh, good. Nice.
But the two things that stand out to me are it's just people yelling at each other all the time. And after the first episode, I was like, I don't know if I can take this. Like, we get it. Everyone's family's terrible. Like, let's move on. Like, they argue about everything all the time. But the other one is there's a character who has a wife who died, and she's AI now, and she talks to her all the time.
Isn't that wild?
And this is going to happen. It's probably already. It's not like it is in the show yet, but it will be.
It's in the show. It's way much better than it could ever be now.
Yeah, it's bizarre.
Because it's like a real conversation.
This is people are falling in love or developing deep relationships with AI chatbots who are nobody. If you can make that thing like someone, especially someone who's passed.
Can I tell you something? I'm working on it right now because Lisa's mom passed a few months ago. Her dad is really grieving. And Lisa said, what if we made like a little Amazon Echo that was her voice?
So think about the baby steps to this, right? The photos from the past that turn them into little videos. Yeah. We're like, oh my God. Or the people, how many people, seriously, just listening to this podcast, probably hundreds of thousands of them who have some voicemail recording on their iPhone or whatever that they will never get rid of because it's the last time they could hear that person's voice. I have
20 of my mom's voicemails because I know that it won't be long, and I want to.
I know, and someday you're going to have to. I'm going to give you going to be there anymore.
All the tip. You're going to be glad you were listening today. Record your loved ones now with high quality recording equipment. Yeah. Because the problem I have making Lisa's mom's AI is we just don't have any good recordings of her voice.
I did a 2-day sit down with my grandmother.
Perfect.
Talking about that life and
what you're doing. So
you're explaining all the photos.
A personal right. The time unfortunately has passed to do this with Sharon, who's not my mother-in-law or my stepmom, but the woman that was married to my father, who we bought this place and our previous house from, has this treasure trove of photos that I've digitized for the family. but no one knows what any half of them are. And unfortunately, she has dementia, and probably, I feel like I keep saying to my sisters, like, she's going to have one of those clarity days. You got to break out the photos right then, because she has these super clear moments where she's like, oh, that's Bob from Caribou, Maine.
I did that with my mom too. Yeah.
Oh my God, it's incredible.
Tell me those stories. I mean, first of all, it's great to have those recordings, regardless.
Yep.
But if you ever thought you wanted to make an AI simulacrum,
so I'm
by the way, your stepmom Sharon, no, but you know who will?
I
Sharon Osbourne,
right? I don't know that I want that, and I don't know that that's healthy. But
there is a AI Ozzy coming.
Boy,
oh, for God's sake! This thing walks in the door, and he just belts out the beginning. That's how he walks in the door. Bum bum.
Sharon says they're going to take it around the world.
Yeah, of course they are.
Yep. AI Ozzy. He kind of looked like an AI anyway.
Yeah. They did it with ABBA, with the, whatever that was.
That was weird. That 3D. And they're not even dead.
There are bands touring right now that don't have a single original member. You know,
well, that happens because I go to the county
I know,
fair.
But that's like a. It's
I
like
see
a
that all the time. It's the Drifters with George Burns.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like Bob Smith from Alabama, and I'm sorry, who is this guy?
What?
Yeah,
he played guitar on one tour, and now he's Alabama.
He saw them in one tour. That's the only qualification. You don't even have to have ever been in the band. You're just doing it now. It's very strange.
May I interest you in a commercial break?
Of course. It's about that time.
We will continue on. You're watching Windows Weekly. Paul Thurrott, Richard Campbell, and the AI Ozzy. Oi, oi, oi. Our show today brought to you by WebRoot. I wish we'd been running WebRoot in January, because we got a message from Google a couple of days ago saying, your workspace has been compromised. And the bad guys have been in there 121 days because one of our employees clicked a link in a Gmail that brought them to a fake Google sign-in page. And they signed in. And we didn't have, because they were on a Mac, we thought, oh, they don't need any protection. They have it now. The problem is which protection you use. And I got to tell you, there are bad antiviruses out there. You know their names. If your computer is starting to go, if it's getting sluggish, if it heats up when you open a few tabs, or sounds like it's preparing for liftoff every time it runs, it may not be hardware. It may be your antivirus. So many of these big name brands have become bulky and complicated and full of pop-ups and upsells. No wonder people don't want to run them. Not WebRoot. WebRoot offers all-in-one digital protection for as many as 10 devices with one subscription, with a variety of plans designed to protect you and your loved ones from digital threats. You get powerful antivirus. You also can get identity protection without the slowdowns, without the pop-ups. And I'll give you some numbers. WebRoot Essentials scans 6 times faster. And it ranks number 1 in performance compared to Norton and McAfee. In fact, let me give you some real numbers. WebRoot Essentials versus Norton Antivirus, which is, I think, still the best seller. I don't know why. WebRoot scans 3.7 times faster, installs 35 times smaller, uses 5 times less RAM when idle. How about McAfee? WebRoot Essentials versus McAfee Antivirus. Scans 10 times faster, installs 16 times smaller, 5 times less RAM when idle. And that's the difference that can make your computer feel newer, faster, and easier to use. So don't blame your machine. Get WebRoot. If you look at the website, they have a variety of plans. There is, of course, WebRoot Total Protection, which includes antivirus, identity monitoring, privacy protection, and cloud backup with a single hassle-free subscription. It's designed for everyday life. WebRoot Total Protection ranked first overall when compared to top competitors. By the way, you might say, well, that's the big one. That can't be faster. Yes, it can. 7 times faster than the average competitor, 3 times less space than the average competitor on the hard drive. That's if you get the full package. Oh, and I should mention AI has obviously changed the cybersecurity game. Scams are smarter, malware is faster, phishing emails look shockingly real. Tell that to our team. But the good news is you don't need to be a tech expert to stay ahead of it when you use security that can keep up with the AI threats. Unlike a lot of those free antivirus tools or older security programs, Webroot is built to counter the modern AI-driven attacks. It's fast, it's lightweight, it's designed to spot threats before they ever reach you. Live a better digital life with Webroot. Webroot is offering our listeners an exclusive 60% off offer. Visit webroot.com/twit to learn more. That's webroot.com/twit. WEBROOT.com/TWIT. Thank you, Webroot, for your support. By the way, did you notice, Paul? I realized when I got that book off my bookshelf that I have the Thurrott teacup and I have the Brenna's Radio coffee
that's
cup.
Nice.
And I thought, well, they belong on the set.
Oh, that's fun.
Yes. I don't
the
know
old
if you...
desk had them sitting there, as I recall.
That was a limited run too.
Oh, well, I won't break it then.
It's going to break on its own, Leo. It's cheap, but
it is on a kind of a sliding.
Yeah, it's just sliding off the edge.
It's a little slippery.
I ship out a run as mug once or twice a week, so yeah, it's fine.
Yeah, I have a ZDTV mug that nobody's making anymore. 26 years later, and I really don't want to break that one, so I'm very careful when I wash that one. Anyway, let's go on with the show. Sorry to interrupt.
No problem. OpenAI, I guess, sensing all of the wonderfulness
Claude
that Anthropic is doing with Office, has released a Chat GPT plugin for PowerPoint. Without getting into the, I know, the specifics, like how specific that is, I will say, this is one of my earliest examples with AI. When you think about, in trying to grasp what's happening and understand it all, and what could AI be good for? The two things I always come back to are my story about how every January I have to make a new, fix a chart in Excel. I don't know how to use this stupid thing. Or every once in a while I have to make a PowerPoint presentation. I don't speak regularly anymore. I'm not traveling a lot for this. I've never been and never will be a PowerPoint expert. But, being able to go in, it literally says would you like to make a new presentation? Yeah, I'd like you to do that for me. This is a good use of AI, I think. Okay, whatever. I'm not saying this is a particularly good one or whatever, but of course they're doing this. So you're going to see this everywhere.
I got a new deck to make, and it's the data centers in space deck too.
I'm only okay with this if every time you begin the presentation, you say it as data centers in space.
I think the talk title is actually Above the Cloud.
Nice. Which is heaven, really, right?
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying? And then, I've been complaining about .NET 10 just because I don't quite understand what the point of it is. But last week I talked about...
I'm pretty sure you're complaining about .NET 11, but okay.
Oh, .NET 11, sorry.
.NET 10 shipped in November.
Yeah, whatever. Numbers
you
are
complain
hard.
about it if you want.
Okay.
It's fast. Give it a chance. It's fast. But you're complaining about 11 because you're not seeing anything in 11 that you care about.
Okay. Well... .NET MAUI, which is Microsoft's, C# based, Xamarin Forms follow-up for mobile app development.
But also trying to include everything else. It's trying to be the unified UX solution, but
it's not going to work. It's not going to be good for that. But if you like mobile apps, so they're supporting Material U, or as they're calling it for some reason, Material 3, which is the most recent modern version of the Google/Android design language. And it's just a property flag in your project properties, much like when you add support for .NET 9, I guess it was, to, or I should say WinUI 3 to WPF projects. So same thing. It's just a single line, and they're going to improve it over time, et cetera, et cetera. But so that's cool. I mean, that's
okay.
Good for them. And then last week I talked about, I think this was my tip or something, this notion that, we're getting to the point where normal people are going to be able to build apps, and this notion of just making things with AI. And when I was watching, I knew this was coming, but in watching the Google AI keynote, when they got to the Google AI Studio bit and they were talking about making native Android apps, I was like, I got to try this. And I didn't say a way to do that. at the time, but I ended up making what is really a web app version of like a markdown editor similar to Typora, which is the app I used. It was actually pretty great. And then the next day I got up and I was like, I'm going to try this again. And Android app support was there. And I was doing this on a Windows on ARM device. This is kind of weird because Android Studio on the Mac, which is ARM based, runs their emulators, like their virtual machines for the devices, no problem. But on the Windows side, you actually have to have an x64 device to do that. So I was running this against physical devices, first the phone and then the Fold, because it has the bigger screen, which is more like a desktop sort of. And holy crap, that was really good. So, and I was like, okay, that's interesting. The only issue I had, like, I kept refining the prompt, and then what I got to was like the app came up on the Fold. In this case, it was just an all white screen with nothing in it. So I'm writing the thing back, and I'm like, yeah, this is not working. It's just a blank screen. And so it's like, okay, testing it. It went through this whole process, and at the end, it was like, no, this is working exactly right. Just type into it. And if you have to save it, just type, Control S. And I was like, oh my God, seriously. And it just made this total, like minimalist, version of the app. And I was like, okay, that's fine. I don't want that, but that's fine. But then I spent a lot of the weekend doing this stuff in various ways. Like I did it directly in Android Studio, which I'd say not as successful or good as maybe the GitHub Copilot experience in Visual Studio, but I'm sure it's going to get there. I went back to Cloud Code, which is something I'd used before I was able to finish my WinUI Pad or .NET Pad project, but mixed results. And that was still kind of mixed results. But I was really, the last thing I did before the end of the weekend was I went back and did another version of the Markdown editor. But this time I was like, all right, listen, I want this thing to be installable as a web app, like a PWA. Like what I want to be able to do is go to this URL, and there'll be the thing in the browser address bar, and I can install it. It was like, okay. And it's like 22 seconds. And it works great. And it had like this superfluous little UI bits, like in the corner of the app, there were like these 3 circles that I guess were supposed to look like Mac buttons for Windows or something. Didn't do anything. So I was like, get rid of that. And then there was also a superfluous kind of install app button near the top that I said, get rid of that. That's part of the browser UI. And it did, no problem. And this thing, it's pretty much as good as the app I use every day. Like it just works everywhere. It works on mobile. It works on my computers. Like it's insane. And I think this is that Leo's been doing this for months, so he's not impressed by any of this. But in this notion that you can have a conversation about the thing. Mm-hmm. In this case, I do not understand the code base, like at all. I'm not, whether it's web apps with JavaScript and React or whatever it might be, or native Android apps, which is Kotlin and Jetpack Compose. I don't understand these languages. I don't understand these frameworks. I have basic like developer experience in other languages and frameworks, I guess, but I just don't, I'm not gonna be able to edit this code, and there's a point where in the future, maybe you get it's not gonna work. And I'm not gonna be able to figure it out. Maybe, I don't know, but I haven't hit that point. And I also, if you look at the description, especially for Google AI Studio, they're like, look, you should use this for specific apps, like simple apps, like, the list of whatever type of apps. I'm like, and the thing I'm making is not on that list, and it's pretty complex, but it's working. It's incredible. Like it works great. Yeah. Like it's really good. Yeah. So I just did just quick update on that. I'm so blown away.
The user acceptance testing is the most important testing, one way or the other. Although there are overarching elements like, is it secure?
Well, yes. I mean, in this case, it's just I'm creating it's a text editor essentially, but it displays in kind of it's HTML, but it's a rich text look, like it has styles and blah, 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 whatever. I can open files in the local file system. I can save them back. They're like, they open them elsewhere. They look perfect. Like everything's fine. Like, I think this is like a gateway drug. I think, when Google adds like, what do they call it? Widget editing, like, or widget creation, like kind of conversational vibe coded widgets that if you're familiar with widgets on Android, but really widgets on any platform like iOS or whatever, it's really just another surface for an underlying app. Like you have a weather widget it's pretty, but it's using the weather app on the phone, right? Like the widgets you're going to create in a couple of months on Android could draw from multiple sources, right? They're like super widgets in a way. In many ways, they're more powerful than the widgets that are built into your phone, because you can say, this is based on the demo they did, but it's like, I have a trip coming up. Like, so I want some kind of a calendar thing, and I want something where I can see my itinerary, and I want something where I can see my plane tickets. And you want all this stuff in one place. It's like a screen on your phone or something. That's actually very powerful, Mm-hmm. And, I don't know. This is super impressive to me.
Yeah. So. And this idea of wrapping yourself in personal software seems very reasonable, given there's sufficient guidelines around it to mm-hmm. don't put it in a place where it's going to be risky for you. But if it's automations that help you, why wouldn't you?
Yeah. And this is where the historical strengths or weaknesses of like Apple and Google in particular are going to come to the forefront, because Apple will be slower, but what they do will eventually be great. Google will be faster, and they will make mistakes, but it will be nuts. And so in that sense, there's going to be something for everyone. And I'm just talking mobile here because I think that's where most of this is going to happen. But it's I don't know. It's just a different world. Like, it's great.
It's an interesting time that we're in, for sure.
Yep. Yeah. Okay. And then I only have a couple of Xbox gaming type things. We talked about
before you say that, do you mind if I just tell everybody they're listening to Windows Weekly, a fine program on the Twit Podcast Network, starring Paul Thurrott and Richard Campbell. And now the Xbox segment. I do that. They never put a commercial in there, but if they wanted to, they could.
Right.
It's been a nice break.
Now continue, please.
Benito will probably never complain about this because he's such a good guy. But when I record Hands on Windows, on average, I would say I'm supposed to have a break in the middle so there can be an ad.
Yeah, and usually that adds me, by the way.
Okay, but I forget 3 out of 4 times.
Yeah.
And I make a point of remembering, like I try to put it in the notes and but even in the same recording, I'll do it one time and then miss the next 3. Like, I'm really bad at that. Sorry, everybody. Sorry. Okay.
They hate you. It's okay, Paul. Don't worry about it.
We all have our strengths. I just have fewer than most people. So last week we talked about more leadership changes in Xbox briefly. There's not too much to say there other than the weird AI core thing that's occurring in Xbox right now, which I don't understand.
But she's also run off and grabbed a bunch of senior gaming folks now too, from outside of Microsoft, while forcing out the inside of Microsoft gaming senior folks.
Yeah, I mean, if the argument is like what we've been doing isn't working and we need to make changes, it's like, okay. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's kind of hard to argue with that, no matter what anyone thinks about people or whatever. But
in the initial grab, and I think I said this on the show, when she grabbed a bunch of core AI folks, was, well, don't surround yourself with people who don't know anything about gaming. Right. But then the next thing she did was bring in new people focused on gaming. So
yeah, so you're right. So the most recent,
she's definitely up to stuff.
Yep. Yeah, I like that. Like the guy from YouTube that bought Commodore. Like one of the things he did that I think is so cool is he just brought in a bunch of former Commodore luminaries to advise or help. Like Sam Tramiel and Dave Heine, like guys who were David Pleasance. Guys who were part of Commodore and/or Amiga for many, many years, but like 30 years ago are back. Helping with this company now. It's
credit for the self-awareness. I am an enthusiast, not an expert.
Right.
Go get some experts.
Yeah, I think it's neat.
Smart.
I don't quite understand this one, but this happens like late. It was like super late in the day. I think I was done for the day, and this came across my feed. I'm like, okay, I guess I got to write about this. But first of all, Xbox is now all capital letters, so it's Xbox. Yes. I'm not sure I like that. I don't know why. It vaguely reminds me of the original Xbox. There was a kind of a brute force kind of nature to that device. It was a big brick of a thing, a monolithic, whatever looking at it. Maybe, I don't know if that's from that. Maybe it said that on the controller and the button in the middle, which I don't think back then lit up or did anything, but I can't remember. But I saw that and I was like,
because the old logos were all one typeface. Like there was no upper lowercase.
Okay. Yeah, maybe that's what it is then. But anyway, they're using it. So whatever. Microsoft,
I mean, it definitely speaks to, if you're going back to the old culture of Xbox, right? That we're going to focus on the console and that kind of thing. making a reference like once upon a time there was no upper and lower case when it came to Xbox.
Right.
There you go.
Well, there was no upper and lower case on an Apple IIe either, but I guess this is what
Right, TRS-80, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Listen, at some point we just go full blown nostalgia, I've made the argument like McDonald's new restaurant should look like they looked in the 60s,
Yeah, that's
would actually
when I worked there, they had arches.
Yeah. Right. I think people would actually be into that.
Tile, and it was cool.
Yep. Anyway, they're not doing that, but at least not yet. But they announced something called the Xbox Game Studio Shop, which is an online merch store. So you can buy things that are like, hats, T-shirts, drinkware, whatever. Obviously with logos or designs related to Xbox Studio games like Halo and Forza, Gears of War, etc. Kind of a limited collection as of yet. It's going to expand dramatically. I guess they're going to have big launches alongside games where some new Call of Duty, or not Call of Duty actually, but some whatever Xbox Studio game will come out, and then they'll have a bunch of new merchandise as well if you want to do that. I didn't know this, but apparently they already have stores for Blizzard, Call of Duty, Bethesda, and Minecraft, like gear stores, like physical item stores. So this will be another one of those. But for Microsoft's, I guess, they're all first party, but first party.
Well, they got a bunch of Halo gear, that's for sure.
Yeah. Well, it's the only way that thing's going to make any money these days. So that's good. I don't know what they're doing, but it's kind of weird. And then this happened just, I think, since we started the show, but the Valve has brought back, or is now again selling the Steam Deck OLED, which at one point was the most expensive, the better version with the better screen, right? Of their portable gaming device. But this thing now costs like 40 to 46% more, depending on which one you're getting. So like,
wow,
the 512 gigabyte version now starts at $789. And the 1 terabyte version is $949, which is $300 more than it was before. But they're back in stock. So I think the 512 version was $549 and now it's $789. So if you're holding out for that Steam machine, whatever,
the GameCube,
right, it's probably going to be expensive.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Or they'll wait till the things even out, right?
I'm surprised they didn't update the components in this thing. I think this is just the same thing as before, just with higher prices.
Yeah, the real question is how many have they made? Because eventually those prices will come down.
But then they can sell, but we sold every one we made.
There you go.
They're selling like hotcakes, which I think we should all wonder if that is good.
How expensive are your pancakes?
How many hotcakes could you sell?
Do you think that the main reason people are booing speakers at commencement when they say the word AI is it's just a bunch of gamers who can't afford to get a gaming PC?
No, I think it's, I honestly, I think it's people facing one of the bleakest job prospects in history, frankly.
I mean, I understand.
College has never been more expensive. No, I don't either. It actually, the reason or rationale of it doesn't matter, right? It's you just spent 4 more years, hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
And you're going to be working at Pizza Hut, it's kind of tough.
Yeah, I completely understand.
I mean, my son graduated during the COVID thing, and that was terrible. He had a heart. He could not get a job in his field, right?
Well, it's the same. It's the same people who graduated from high school during COVID who are now graduating from college.
That's my daughter. Yes, exactly. Yeah. She's like she's the luckiest kid on earth,
Oh God. You know what? I completely understand why they're pissed. I'd be pissed too.
So AI may be a straw man or whatever you want to call that, but it's emblematic of the problem they see out in the world, because it's the root cause of
the only thing I would say to them is I understand you're upset, but you should really figure out ways to use AI to help you get a job. Because people who are effective at it. I just had a friend who was interviewing at Apple.
Yeah.
And one of the first things they said is, show us an AI project you've worked on.
Right.
Unfortunately, he had a really good one and was able to show them, and they were very impressed.
No, that's good.
Do that.
Yeah.
Because there will be jobs that's just changing the same way that,
Right.
Yeah, but that's not what the tech bros are saying.
No, I know. They're saying there's no more work. Yeah.
First of all, every one of these idiots dropped out of college. So what are we listening to them for?
Yeah.
So
Peter Thiel's paying people not to go to college. So.
Right. Well, I wish he'd pay me not to go to college. I could do that pretty easily.
Could have taken that money.
Yeah, I don't know. Leo's right. First of all, jobs are training. Like my sister, the teacher, we were with her over the weekend, and I was asking her about AI in school and kids and all that stuff. And and she was saying, her belief is like, software development is just going to go away. And I'm like, yeah, that's not exactly right. But I know why you say that. It's changing. It's the thing we've talked about. You're almost more of a project manager, a program manager. It's the thing I just did. I just did I made stuff with code, except I didn't make anything. I didn't do any of it. I just directed it. I told it what to do.
You described what to make.
It's not hard, by the way. I have to say, it's a lot easier than actually coding. That much I can tell you is true. Everything's changing for sure.
It's not changing? The fabulous back of the book. It is an eternal truth that will be with us as long as there is Windows.
It is an eternity if you're waiting for it to end.
Back of the book is next. Just a quick plug for our fabulous club, and a thank you to our fabulous club members, because without them, there would be no Windows Weekly, there would be no Mac Break Weekly, there would be no This Week in Tech, there would be no Intelligent Machines, there would be no Hands on Windows, all of the shows we do. You may say, well, you have ads. We do. Thank you to our advertisers, but ads only cover it's a small and dwindling amount of our overall expenses, about 60%. I think it's down to 50% now. I'm not sure. I haven't checked lately. And we knew this was coming. That's why Lisa said, we better start a club. And we did, actually, during COVID. And it's been great. And we are so grateful to all our members. And I just want to let you know, it's still there. If you're a member, you get ad-free versions of all the shows. You get special programming we don't do anywhere else. And thanks to club members, we're able to add new programming. We're now doing a show with Johnny Jet's coming up this Friday. Actually, Thursday, I guess. Yeah, Thursday at 1, Johnny Jet, our travel guru. It's called Jet Set with Johnny Jet. We've just added a new show with a coding horror blogger, the guy who created Stack Overflow and Discourse, our forum software, Jeff Atwood. It's called Off by One with Jeff Atwood. And if you've ever seen Jeff on our shows, you know he is off by one. It's a really good name, actually, for a show about coding, AI, and everything in between. We do that because the club members support us. So if you like the programming, you want to see more of it, you want to support independent podcasting, not owned by a big company, twit.tv/club-twit. You'll be a member of our Discord. You'll be able to chat with us. There's lots of benefits, but mostly the warm and fuzzy feeling knowing you're supporting independent podcasting like this. Now, let's get to the back of the book. Mr. Paul Thurrott is waiting with his...
I have so much I want to unpack from what you just said. Johnny Jet, is that his real name?
No.
No.
His real name is Johnny Jet Ski.
Jeff, really?
No, that's not his real name either. When he was a younger man, he was a jet ski racer, and he called himself Johnny Jet Ski, and then he focused on travel, so he changed it to Johnny Jet. I used to know his real name. I can't remember. He doesn't hide it, but it is a good name for a travel writer.
Sometimes people just have
Sometimes people are just lucky.
When I went back to college and the internet was happening, the web. This guy I went to school with, who helped run the lab I was at, his name was Dennis Webb, and we used to call him Dennis Worldwide Web. Sometimes it was just good timing.
It just lucks out. Oh, and I forgot to mention a very nice new feature that thank you, Patrick Delahanty, has added. Club members get chapters in their podcast apps.
Chapters?
That means you can skip ahead and backwards or go to a subject you want. People have been asking us for chapters. It's very difficult to do on shows like ours where ads are added after the fact.
An endless series of segues that make it impossible.
Well, that's another thing. Some poor editor's got to go, is that a new subject? I don't know. Let's press a button.
What is he talking about?
What is he talking about? But there are chapter markers now, and you can jump around. And the reason we don't do that for everybody is because of direct ad insertion. Those ad lengths are variable. We don't know how long they're going to be. So there's no way to kind of... Same thing on YouTube. It makes it hard to do it on YouTube because it's moving around. It's a moving target. So if you're in a club member, you don't have ads in your feed, in your shows. So we can easily.
So the chapter markers work.
Yeah, they do work, but only for club members.
Yeah.
And
No ads.
actually, you could help us out because it doesn't work. Not all podcast players respect the markers.
Right.
We have a list on the website, and we're trying to add to that list, especially if you're an Android. If you use an Android podcatcher that does or does not support our chapter markers, if you're in the club, just put it in the Discord, and we will add that to our list of ones that do and don't, because you have to. It's twit.tv/clubtwit/chapters.
I mean, I rely on this now on YouTube for sure for videos.
Yeah.
And that's a useful feature.
How does it work when they put ads in? I don't understand.
Well,
maybe YouTube's got a magic.
I bet
they're putting in the ads, so they know.
It's time from beginning based. I think it's, I don't know how they do it, but I mean, it's I actually don't know how they do it, but I bet it can't be, right? Because they insert ads, depending on who you are, like all over the place, right?
Yeah, you know what? That's it. They know how long those ads are, so they can do the math.
Maybe. Yeah.
We don't know because the ads are inserted after the fact by a third party, so we can't do the math.
Gotta hit your marks. Gotta get the exact amount of time. I don't know.
So anyway, don't support big podcasts. Support little podcasts like us. Twit.tv/clubtwit. Now, we're going to restart it. The back of the book. Paul Thurrott is tip of the week. Tip of the week.
Yeah, so a couple of weeks ago, we were getting ready to come home from Mexico. I think I mentioned the day we had that big electrical problem. And one of the things I did that day before everything went south was, I'm getting ready to fly home. I have all these laptops and electronics and whatever there. And I was like, I'm going to be ready for this trip ahead of time. So one of the things I did as part of that was I kind of decommissioned or like even reset or whatever laptops that I wasn't going to need or bring home with me, et cetera. So a lot of those things were like laptops I had been testing Linux on. So I've been writing this long kind of switcher series over the past couple of months, looking at various Linux distributions and apps and whatever else and other alternatives to Windows, et cetera. And something interesting happened, which is within a day or two, I find myself like kind of missing Linux. And I was trying to figure out like why, like what was it about Linux?
Wait a minute. Did you just say missing Linux?
Please don't pay attention to this.
What?
This is not for Leo. So I did a couple things came out of this. I installed WSL, the Windows subsystem for Linux, on the laptop I use most of the time, and yeah, whatever. But I was trying to figure out like what is it about Linux? Like what are the things about Linux that are appealing to me? And a couple of things came out of this. So one was the thing I talked about last week, which is you're going to set up Windows 11 as a Linux user would Linux, right? In other words, you're using a local account. You're not going to connect ever to a Microsoft account or to any Microsoft services. You're going to install things from a command line, et cetera, whatever it might be. So we talked about that last week. And then I wrote down a list of the things that were about Linux, which, factored into that article. And then I think it was yesterday, finally wrote the article, which I called the Zen of Linux for no good reason. But like, what are the things like the conceptual differences you have to get over? And two of them are actually coming from Windows, I guess, or maybe the Mac, but definitely from Windows, right? But two are applicable to Windows, and speak to that article I talked about before. The first one is this notion of like Windows users just knee jerk, go to the web, download exes, install them, and that's how you install apps. You find them on the web, you install them from the download you got from the web. But we have this thing Linux has had forever, which is a package manager. There are third-party package managers, but Microsoft has one built into Windows, WinGet, or the Windows Package Manager. We obviously have the store, which is its own thing. We have new CLIs all over the place, like the store CLI is the relevant examples here. But you can, in the context of Windows, do things much like you do on Linux, except that one of the big Achilles heels for WinGet is it's great for finding and installing apps. It's great for bulk installing apps through a script. It's no good at managing apps, meaning keeping them up to date automatically, because you can go to the command line at any time and, WinGate upgrade and -- all whatever, and it will update everything, but you have to do it yourself. Like on Linux, like this stuff just kind of happens. And like, that's kind of a neat thing. Like it's a different mindset, it's a different way to think of it. The other one that applies is the command line, which is like, we've spent the past, I guess, 50 years now getting away from command lines, right? The world of MS-DOS and whatever preceded it, CPM, et cetera. But, I got to say, I was talking to Rich, I mentioned this, I think to Richard before the show started, like more and more, it's like, if I could boot into a command line and just use that most of the time, I think I would, like I love that Microsoft Edit, command line editor. I mean, I love it.
You are really falling deep into this.
I know. Wow. It's not good.
It's going to be just a matter of time before you use an Emacs.
Don't go that far.
Emacs is a bit much. But the command line is not just something you have to deal with. Like when people are like, well, Linux will make it when you don't have to go. It's like, yeah, you're not thinking about this correctly. There are things that are faster and better and more efficient or whatever from the command line. It's like the app updating thing, even on Windows where you have to do it manually, it's still more efficient just to do this. Like then, I guess you could just leave it alone, not worry about it. But I mean, the thing that's nice about Winget or any package manager is that it's everything. So no matter how you install an app, like this will, unless the thing is literally just not like outside of the system and doing its own thing, like this will update all your store apps, it will update web-based apps, whatever. Like it's really nice. And I just think, like it's not something you have to deal with. It's something you should just embrace. Like it's just better for certain things, There are other things on Linux that are just different. Like the file system obviously comes out of Unix and whatever. Our file system came out of something stupid like CPM, which was inspired by some IBM stupidity from the late or early 70s that whatever. And we have drive letters and we still have them. And whatever, it's normal to us, but it's just not whatever. And then the one thing that Microsoft's trying to get to, which I'm not 100% sure is actually a huge Linux advantage, is the chaos of updating and requiring reboots, right? So Microsoft wants to get Windows down to like one boot a month. Neat. If you bring up a new Linux PC or new Linux install, whatever, you're going to be rebooting that thing. I mean, there's no doubt about it. But I guess the goal here is that Linux is architected in such a way that updates will don't stop you from running the underlying app or service, and they can just update in place, and that works. And usually you don't have to reboot, and that's kind of cool, I guess. But we're trying to get there. But I guess the notion isn't so much like you should just like switch to Linux, although that will be an option for some people, but more like kind of incorporate some of the thinking of Linux into the way that you approach Windows, which is what that thing last week was about. So
yeah, I agree.
Kind of interesting.
People act as if Linux is all different than Windows. It's just another.
Well, so the problem is Linux is different from Linux, right? Like, you run something like Debian and there's nothing you can customize at all. Like this thing's missing. It's bizarre. You don't even get your account. You have to figure out how to make your account able to even do sudo, It's insanity.
It's not built in Debian.
Some of them are they're just crazy, customizable, never ending. You can just spend your whole life playing around with the UI if you wanted to.
There's something for everybody.
Yeah, there really is.
In the world of Linux.
Yep.
I'm a very happy user, and I'm glad to see that you have finally joined
the dark side, or whatever we're calling it. I'm not going to admit to that. So, okay. And then I don't have an app pick, but some of this is tied to the switcher stuff. Some of it is just timely. So Vivaldi released the 8.0 version of the browser last week with what they're called, I think they just call it a unified design. It's a new design. It's just like the what they call the Chrome, the outside of the browser. It's actually really nice. Like it's beautiful. Like this is good enough. It's worth looking at. It's a Chromium browser, whatever. But their whole thing has always been customization. Their thing lately has been no AI. That's part of their little story. But this UI is fascinating because this is what Mozilla has been talking about to do for Firefox. And now they're publicly testing it. If you want to, you can go get the nightly builds of Firefox. You can see this thing. But I think literally Vivaldi just shipped it. Like it's basically the same thing. It's only on desktop today, but I'm sure they will come to mobile as well. But you can also, if you want to, you can look at the Mozilla version of this, if you will. And I know Kev Brewer had posted this in my forums, and I think it was before we wrote about it. But Discord now has a native Windows 11 app, Windows 11 on ARM app. Sorry. So you can, if you have a Snapdragon X or whatever PC, you can get a native app version, which I guess is snappier. Sorry. And one thing this is kind of bizarre. Like I've spent a lot of time lately, like we talked about, like with markdown editors and making them with AI and everything. And I'm a little nervous about turning my attention to like a Notion type app because this can be complex. But I have been looking for a Notion replacement, right? And it's weird because when I think about it off the top of my head, the things that I think I need are things like it's not a black box, meaning it's up in someone's cloud and I have to sync into it to go get it. I don't have a local version of anything. I can't sync it to myself. There's no real offline mode. I mean, there's offline support, but I can't arbitrarily easily mark things for being offline like you can with like many apps, right? And that stuff's true. And there are things like Obsidian and Joplin and whatever else. There's a million of these things that are the individual notes or markdown files. You know, they use some YAML or something else to create the structure in the app itself. You can sync it to your own thing if you want to put it in OneDrive, Google Drive, Synology Drive, whatever you want. You can do that. And that's good. But then I realized in testing these things, there's actually a couple of other things that I need. One of them is like sharing, right? So we do the Windows Weekly Notes in Notion, and I share it with Richard and Leo and people from Twit, and it works great and it's easy. And sharing is kind of a problem when it's like markdown based files that could be anywhere in a file system. It requires a little bit of infrastructure, basically. And then the other one is like a mobile client, right? Some of the apps I just mentioned, I think Obsidian and Joplin probably, AppFlowy probably, a couple of others, AnyType I think is one, do have mobile clients, you know. But I just came across this thing I think people really need to look at. I love this app. It was written first for the Mac. It only shipped about a month ago, and now it's on Windows as well. And there's some things in it, like you right click on something and it says show in Finder instead of show in File Explorer. You're like, you know, but it's beautiful. It's clean. It looks just like Notion. It is local save markdown files, right, that you control. And it is called, what is it called, Paul? It's called Tolaria, Tolaria. This is worth looking at. It's beautiful. It's pure markdown, excellent. It's a great markdown editor, by the way, which is really interesting. Like one app that can do the two things. So you can use markdown syntax like a Notion, right? You can use markdown syntax in other apps, but this thing has like a kind of a traditional for this kind of app 3-pane view where it's like the side pane with like navigation essentially, and then a middle pane, which is a list of notes that are in that folder you're looking at, and then a main pane with the editor itself. So if you do like control 3 is the primary view. If you do control 2, it turns off the side pane. If you do, I might be doing this backwards. Yeah, no. And if you do control 1, it's just a markdown editor by itself. Like it's really clean. And I'm like, you know, this thing is pretty damn close to being something I would just use. It's just that it does not support.
Looks great.
Yeah, it looks awesome. And I've been using it like it is awesome, but I don't believe there's a way to share anything in here, which is kind of critical.
Oh, so you couldn't do the show
and phone.
Yeah.
No, cannot. And so that makes it a non-starter for right now. But I feel, but it's being so quickly updated, and
well, because it's on Git.
Yep.
We could be sharing with fetching, but that's tricky.
Right. So it actually, right. So I have connected it to Git. So it's, you know, there's that. That's a form of sync, right? If you think of it, and obviously also version control. And what's the other thing? It also integrates with AI, right? So this guy is actually vibe coding this thing, by the way.
Well, what a surprise. You're going to see a lot of these.
But look at but look at the quality of the UI.
It looks good.
It's astonishing.
Yeah.
So you can connect it to AI. So when I install it, like on the first PC I installed it on, I had Cloud and Cloud Code installed, which is like the CLI part of it or whatever. And it picked it up immediately. It was like, do you just want to use this? I'm like, yep. And I never use the AI sidebar. You don't have to, but it does have that AI sidebar thing, and you can bring your own AI. It's impressive. This is
it's kind of a stripped down Obsidian is what it really is.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really neat. This is interesting to me.
So the sharing thing is actually but I think you could easily add a piece with your AI to share it.
It's not just that though. Like I don't want to have two things that do the same thing, right?
Yeah.
So I use Notion for everything. So you guys see the show notes, but I use it for my business. I use it for the Eternal Spring thing I do with my wife. I use it for my meeting notes that are just whatever. I use it for personal things like, weights at the gym or the names of people and dogs in Mexico City in different places or whatever it is. Like I use it for personal things. And that means I need to be able to access it on my phone. And, individual markdown files sitting in a directory that, yes, I can access on my phone and I can see it. It's fine. But ideally there would be like an app that is this thing that is connected to the same back end that I'm using for sync, which could be OneDrive. Like I said, anything I want it to be would be better, but that also makes it difficult because of the nature of the thing. So anyway, look, I just want people, I think most, when you say or Google Notion alternative, you'll get the same 5 to 10 choices every time. Everyone's heard of them all, Obsidian, any type, especially Joplin, whatever. But this is one I think this will start coming up. It isn't yet, but it's brand new. I think the initial release was about like a month ago. And it is super impressive. Like it's really nice. Really nice. So it's still worth looking at. And it may meet your needs.
And now you got me thinking.
I know.
Is the source code's probably on GitHub, I presume? Yeah,
it is. Yeah. It's completely
so it would be easy enough to say, okay, take Teleria,
right,
and I want to add your own component to it.
Yep.
I mean, this is why Notion is in the cloud, because that makes it easy to share.
Notion probably has a formal, I'm sure they have to, a system for third parties to make extensions or whatever they call them, right? Like Obsidian has this, or the products that do this have that. So I don't know that this has it. I don't know that it's part of the plan. I think it would have to be.
It's a bit young right now.
Yeah, I don't believe it's there yet. But I just look at the quality of what it is today. If you just think of this as I guess a note, like a standalone Notion, whatever. It's like what's there is so good. I'm curious, to see where this goes. And I feel like this guy, his blog is interesting. He's an interesting guy. Like he is actively developing this, and you can tell, you can see how often new releases go. It's pretty incredible.
Nice.
So yeah, kind of incredible.
TOLARIA.MD.
I don't even know how I found it. It's just so under the radar, but it's
11,000 stars on GitHub is one way.
That will do it.
It's a very popular. Right. It's a very popular GitHub.
GitHub's it looks like you're making a lot of Markdown editors. Do you want to look at this thing?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and that's the other thing. There are a lot of things like this, but this looks really nice.
No, there are a lot of things like this. Right. That's right. And look, we all have our own little set of criteria. And if you're trying to do this kind of thing, you could be like, all right, what meets my need, whatever. Go to alternative2.com or whatever it is and look up Notion Alternative. There's a bunch of them, right? But this one's really good. Really good.
Very nice. Very, very, very nice. This means, because you have come to the end of your chapter in the back of the book, that it's time for Richard Campbell and his chapter, beginning with Run As Radio.
I brought my friend Corinne Bissett back on the show. She's done a few now. She still works for Veeam, but very much a communicator type and digging into different texts. Of course, Veeam means a lot of backup and stuff like that, but that was not the conversation we had this time around. This time we were talking about Loop and its role in productivity. I'm looking for a Loop show.
Is Loop still around?
So before you go on, let me just ask you one quick question. Does Copilot notebooks ever come up in this conversation?
No.
No, I'm serious. Because I feel like that is what Loop becomes.
I wonder. Copilot notebooks. But really, she was talking about Loop components primarily, which, by the way, you have to be in the M365 attendant for any of this to work. No outsiders. Like they've not attended the same way, like in Teams, you can have an external now. You can't do this with Loop at all. But it was really her focus with the component piece was about making living documents where you always have the current data. So even as far as in a Teams meeting, the agenda can be dynamically edited by anyone and everyone has the synced version of it. But and also went into, while in the Teams meeting, as we were talking through tasks, those became work items that appeared in people's planners. that any data set that you were counting on as part of that conversation was synchronized with everyone and real-time updated when you come back to review it as well. Like it just was a very much because Loop is too many things. Like we talk about Loop as the Notion competitor, which it's a mediocre at that. The number of times in a given week, like, what I can't do with my Loop phone client, figure out what whiskeys I previously talked about, because the search is worthless, right? So I'm, go into a liquor store, pull out the Windows whiskey list, and no, I can't find anything that doesn't work. Works fine on the PC, doesn't work on the phone. But when it comes to this integrating M365 documents and tying them together with component feed, it's really quite powerful. But very much it's a collaboration tool for a group of people inside an M365 tenant to deal with not handing files around, not working on a date, references, that kind of thing. That's really where Corinne dug in and said, like, look, this will save you a ton of pain, and really pulls together the role of Teams and Planner, Loop, even Automate, or even putting components directly into OneNote if you prefer OneNote. It could do all of them. So it was a great conversation. It talked about an aspect of Loop I just did not know that much about. And it speaks to why some folks have such a great experience with Loop and don't know what you're calling about. But it's like, because you're not using Loop like it's Notion, which I'm still doing for some reason. And maybe I need to stop it.
You're the last one. That's good.
You and 7 other people.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I'm using OneNote most of the time. And I just tried a few things in Loop. And
I'm a big Obsidian fan, and Obsidian works really well with AI. So I'm happy with that, but it's a little more heavyweight.
For sure.
And I suppose Loop is too.
But I got my Loop open right now for my whiskey pick. So that's where I put those notes. So we're back in Canada. I've decided to pick Canadian whiskey, and the particular one I grabbed this time around is from John Sleeman and Sons. And you will notice this is an unopened bottle, because I'm going to tell the whole story and predict what this is going to taste like, and then I'm going to unwrap it and taste it and figure out how badly wrong I went.
Live on the air.
Living on the edge, man.
This is better than Al Capone's vault, ladies and gentlemen.
There you go. Funny you make the Al Capone reference, because we're going to get there.
Uh-oh.
So we're back in Ontario. We're in Guelph, which is a university town. This is near Waterloo and Kitchener, which are all university towns. It's like a cluster of universities. This is about 90 kilometers west of Toronto, 55 miles. Although, if you're from Ontario, you would never say that. You'd say it's 75 minutes away, because for some reason, the Ontario folks always talk distances as time-driven. This is a part of the world that has always grown corn. The original corn was there. There's evidence of the Mississauga peoples, which is what this region is known 10,000 years ago, growing corn in this location. Although corn was very different at the Tennessee, which is the sort of precursor corn, was a very different plant that long ago. What makes the location important? It's a river intersection, of course. The Speed River and the Eramosa River. Can't find a reason why they called it Speed, but because it's not a fast river in any way. Those two rivers ultimately feed into the Grand River, which dumps into Lake Erie, not Lake Ontario. Toronto is on Lake Ontario, but you got to go the next Great Lake down. That's where the Grand River drains into. But that'll become relevant later. This is a climate zone we call humid continental. So quite cold winters, very snowy, and warm, humid summers. Now, the European influences start becoming relevant in this equation around 1827, when a Scottish entrepreneur named John Galt, quite famous in this area for building out towns and so forth. And this was a very planned town. And he ceremoniously felled a tree at the intersection of those two rivers, the Speed and the Eramosa, and named it Guelph after the House of Guelph, which was the ancestral line of King George IV, who was the reigning monarch at the time. Remember, we are talking about Upper Canada in the Dominion of Canada, which was a British colony. If you look at the map of Guelph, if you ever get a chance to go there, you will see that the river the Speed River is sort of the starting point, and it does a radial road set, very much like a commons model, into a grid. So very European with large boulevards, lots of room. It was supposed to be a stylish and important location, and it became one. Our player here, John Sleeman, shows up around that time. Originally from Cornwall, England, he immigrates to Upper Canada in 1834, and he brings the family business with him, which is breweries. So it's all about the beer. And he arrives in Guelph as the operator for a brewery owned by John Hodgert, which he'll be successful enough with over just a few years that it'll get sold and he'll lose his job in 1850. And so then has enough money to open his own brewery called the Silver Creek Brewery, taking water from the Speed River. It's also where the Grand Railway line runs directly to the U.S. as well. And so he starts cranking out beer there, famous for small batching his beers in 100-barrel lots, more or less. Again, this is very much before bottling. By 1859, he hands the reins over to his son, George, who within a year or two when his son, George Jr., gets involved, renamed the company George Sleeman and Sons. John Sleeman, the original, actually retires back to England in 1867, which is the year of Confederation for Canada. That's when Canada becomes Canada, and leaving George Sr. as the sole owner, and he lives out his last days in England. By 1870, and we have the letters between George and his father to sort of all the stories there. George Sleeman gets heavily involved in Guelph from a public service point of view, becomes a city councillor, sponsors the local baseball team, who even wins a championship in 1874, that is. And by 1880, George Sleeman is actually the mayor of Guelph. And wisely, and there's a great paper story about him becoming mayor. One of the very first things he did was he declared July 1st, which we then knew as Dominion Day, as an official day off for the whole city of Guelph. Now, today, it is a holiday, and everybody's in theory supposed to have that day off, right? But back then, it was not as an obvious thing. Some folks took it off, some folks didn't. But it was also in the 1870s, 1880s, a ton of serious labor strife. We're just coming into what will eventually become the union movements and things like this. And so making that play to get a day off was a very popular move for the working man. It was also mentioned in the article I read that he was also in the business of selling beer, and having a day off is a good chance to sell more beer. And so by the late 1800s, Sleeman is looked on at the same level as the biggest beer makers in all of Canada. So folks like Molson and Labatt, Sleeman was said literally in the same voice, although not as well known for a while there, which will be explained later. In 1900, George Jr. incorporates the company as Sleeman Brewing and Malting, and that name will persist. Now, his father has invested heavily in railways and tram systems in Guelph, and to the point where he actually loses the brewery to the banks when the finances get a little tight. They've also opened up a secondary brewery they call Springbank, and he makes enough money to actually buy it back from the bank within a year or so. Things get crazy by World War I when there's shortages of everything. And then in 1916, the temperance movement, prohibition, arrives in Ontario before U.S. prohibition. Now, that was fine for Sleeman's because they were already on the rail line and were exporting lots of product to the U.S. anyway, so they just focused on that. Although they did start making a medicinal beer, which was only 2.5%, which fell under the thresholds for prohibition, so they were able to continue selling that. Although later they'll get into trouble with making overproof beer being over 2.5% and selling it in Ontario. Things get really grim by 1920 when the U.S. prohibition begins. And that's when the smuggling really takes off. Now, remember, I mentioned the river system in Guelph. It goes through to Lake Erie, which means if you can get to Lake Erie, you have access to New York, Pennsylvania, Ohio, and Michigan. And so beer selling, by all accounts, continues apace. And it's not until 1926 that there starts to be major investigations into the corruption of customs and excise around products traveling into the U.S. And the brewery shuts down. Actually, George Jr. passes away, and his son Henry is now running the business. And prohibition comes to the end in Ontario in 1927. And at that point, even though the brewery shut down, the commission that had been doing the investigations of corruption and so forth starts demanding to review the books of different breweries in the area. There were a number, and one of them was Sleeman's. And we have the court records where Henry is talking about the fact that they've lost their books. That, they hadn't been able to sell, they weren't selling beer back then, they were selling other products, but they had already shut down, and they had no records at all. And of course, what the commission was really up about was not paying taxes on the exports. And so ultimately they find the brewery guilty, although immediately after Henry's trial, he sells his brewery to the competitor, Holiday Brewing. But even that doesn't hold him completely several. So the trials go on for some time. And by the time 1933 rolls around, aka when Prohibition ends in the U.S., the Canadian government has shut down the Holiday Brewing operation, which also includes the Seaman operation, for tax evasion, and seizes assets of the new owners and the old owners for back taxes and fines, essentially bankrupting the Sleeman family as a whole, and they exit the business. Now, if you read these stories today in the marketing that the new Sleemans is doing, they talk about a 50-year ban for brewing, which we have no real evidence of, but it makes for a good story, because in 1984, John W. Sleeman, which would be the great-great-grandson of the original John H. Sleeman from the 1830s, and again, the story goes this way, I don't know if it's actually true, acquires the recipes of his great-great-grandfather from his Aunt Florian, who tells the tales of the brewing business of the past and how the Sleeman name was so big, and with all the things that happened in Prohibition, also the fact that they kept no records because that might incriminate them, and that they'd had a 50-year ban, and now that 50 years had gone by, the aunt is passing on this information to John W. Sleeman, including the story that they had apparently, during Prohibition, been selling beer to Al Capone. There is no evidence that any of this is true, but it makes an excellent story.
Somebody had to.
Yeah. John W. Sleeman does go to the effort at this point. And by the way, the recipe book, there are pictures of it. So apparently that's real. But he does manage to get the Sleeman Brewing and Malting Company back. He gets it for $1, buys it back from Nabisco, who got it through a series of acquisitions after it was shut down in the 1930s, and goes to work making beer in a serious way. And Sleeman's beer is very popular. Over the next 20 years, becomes a well-known beer name in Canada once again. And I say 20 years because in 2006, John W. sells the kit and caboodle to Sapporo for $400 million. Now, Sapporo is a big Japanese brewer. They're not a super giant like Centauri, but they are big. They also own Anchor Brewing in the U.S. as well. So Sleeman's and a subsidiary in Quebec are their Canadian production side of things. John Sleeman stays on as CEO for a couple of years, but he will step down in 2010 and just becomes a figurehead for Sleeman's. But he also starts inquiring about distilling. He has two sons, Cooper and Quinn. And so by 2015, they're getting serious about building a distillery. And there's a bunch of versions of the story, but I think it's really fun that they go to this ruin of a site, the former Allen's Mill. So Allen's Mill was built in 1830 as a woolen mill, and various things happen along the way. It gets rebuilt as a limestone mill in the 1850s, but by then is operated as a flour mill. At some point, it's also a brewery and a distillery. Some of that structure on the other side of the river. A lot of that got ruined in the 1870s in another big fire. It's rebuilt and repurposed again through the 1960s when another fire shuts it down. But at that point, it's kind of a heritage site, so they declare the whole area a park with just the ruins of the big limestone building. And then, again, there's several versions of the story. In 2015, they're looking for sites for the distillery. There's an argument that this was originally a Sleeman's building anyway, and somebody shows them that under a hidden space in the floor, in a hidden basement, there is the remains of a distillery that was run during Prohibition. Now, again, there was no evidence that the Sleemans ever sold whiskey or distilled products in Prohibition. They were beer sellers, but they take this story and run with it and decide to restore the building rather than build a new distillery. Take the old Allen's Mill limestone structure that was largely a ruin and restore it into the Spring Mill distillery. The restoration
was there prohibition in Canada?
There was, and it was different provinces had prohibition at different time. In the case of Ontario, it was from 1916 to 1927.
Oh, roughly the same time frame as
the U.S. was 1920 to 1933. It went substantially longer there. And so all of that story, that Canadians got into rum running into America because they weren't able to sell at home. They, sort of forced into it. Prohibition started in Ontario before U.S. prohibition. And so Sleeman focused on selling only in the U.S. And then when that went away, it was not that hard to switch to just continue to ship it, but in the dark. And the fact they had the river system leading right to Lake Erie just made it easy. So until in the end, the government comes for the back taxes, and that it shuts all of this down. So this distillery, the Spring Mill Distillery, is in operation in 2019. So we're not going to get any age statement whiskey here. It's much, much too young. Their first barrelings go in 2022, and they make a rye in 2023. By all accounts, even though it's in an old restored building, it's a very technologically advanced distillery. Lots of electronic controllers and things like that. They're acting like it's a craft distillery. Their language is certainly that, but they seem a bit big, even though most of the detailed information of the distillery is not published in any way. They talk about being all Canadian grains, mentioning both corn, rye, and barley, which do grow in the area. They do make a single malt, which would be straight barley. But in this case, we're going to taste their rye whiskey. We know that they use wooden washbacks from Scotland, but made from Canadian Doug fir, which is what the Scottish use, actually. It's sort of a famous thing there. We don't know exactly the size, probably between 8,000 and 12,000 liters, which would be on the big side for a craft, or a small commercial operation. Stainless steel fermenters in the 20,000 liter size, and a pair of Forsyth pot stills. So these are the Scottish style pot stills. Unusual for North America, because typically most Canadian distillers as well as American distillers use column stills with maybe a rectifier or a single finishing pot still. But this is all pot stills. They say they're the largest in North America without any published stats. The guess is somewhere between 5,000 and 8,000 liters. They also have their own cooperage. This is very unusual, but one of the sons, Quinn, studied in Scotland to be a cooper, to be a barrel maker. And so one of their claims to fame is that they have actual Canadian oak barrels. Now, this is the same species of oak that grows in the U.S. in Missouri, but is on the other side of the border. So it's still Querulus alba, the white oak, but just on the other side of the border. And those trees do grow in southern Ontario just fine. Their storage system is the rack house style. It's in the stone mill. The stone mill obviously is much bigger than the distilling operation we really need. And that limestone really lends to managing the temperature variation a bit more. So winters are awfully cold in that part of the world, but the limestone will ease that off, and same with too much heat. So everything that's being distilled is put into barrels in the same building. And remember, this is still Canada, so we tend to not do mash bills the way the Americans do. We distill each grain separately because they need separate treatments, and then barrel them separately, and only marry the different alcohols or distillates together when you're going to bottle them. In some ways, from all the information I've gathered on this distillery, they're really straddling the line between Scottish and American techniques. I mean, going all pot still is very Scottish, and rather than a column still, it should be more American. In the case of this particular whiskey, their rye whiskey, this is just corn and rye, no barley, which is different from anything, all the others. If you're going to use the mash bill, you need the barley for the amylase. But if they're just doing corn and rye and they're doing them separately, they will use other enzymes to do the sugaring, the breakdowns. And by using the structures the way they're doing, they're aging faster than Scotland would, which is much cooler and slower, but slower than Kentucky, which tends to be much hotter than that. Now, granted, it's still early days, so they don't have any age statement whiskeys of any kind. They do make a single malt, and they do make this rye whiskey, although we'll talk about how much rye is actually in this thing. The only numbers I've seen for production levels so far is that they're making about 150,000 bottles a year, which is small. That would be barely over 100,000 liters. And we talked when I did the stock and barrel conversation, we talked about how little benefit Ontario gives to small producers. So it's they're kind of small, but they seem to be set up for a larger operation of this. So reading the bottle here, they talk about rye whiskey and Canadian white oak, rye whiskey and American white oak, and corn whiskey and American white oak. So what is this most likely? The best numbers I've found of at least one of the websites that's selling this whiskey said it's 75% corn, 25% rye. That's fine. There's no rules for it have to be all rye. There's this idea of a high rye, which would be more than 50% rye. It does not say high rye anywhere on this. Anyway, that's not a requirement regardless. Anywhere they mention American oak, which would be both the rye and the corn, it's almost certainly ex-bourbon cask. You would not use virgin cask for that. But the Canadian oak is probably virgin cask, which means nothing else has been in there. Not that they're going to have very much of it. It's relatively hard to come by. We don't know if they fired it or not, which is normal with American oak, right? That they actually toast the inside to a certain level. So that's an unusual quirk. And we know, because we've had other alcohols that have been put in virgin oak, that gives much stronger, woodier flavors, right? That typically you go into ex-bourbon barrels because certain of those strong flavors are already gone. You might come in at a slightly higher alcohol level, like 63.5. And I have none of those numbers for this distillery. They've been very secretive. But I am going to open this now, and we're going to go on the ride together, so to speak. Classic bottle, little bulky, got the shoulder and the neck.
It's got a cork, not a screw top.
Got a cork with
important.
a wood top, right? I'm just twisting it so it pops out. Actually, this might be a synthetic. It's a synthetic, yeah.
That's okay. The cork trees of Spain are dying out. It's
Portugal, but yes.
Portugal, wherever they are.
All right. Give ourselves a healthy pour because it is the afternoon and I don't have to be that well behaved. Okay. It's only 40%, but it's quite alcohol-y, right? You get that sort of strong alcohol shot. It doesn't smell super sweet. I think at 75% corn, it would be sweeter than that. And normally when we talk about rye, we're talking about in the context of bourbon, where 25% rye would be a lot for any bourbon. It's normally like 10 or 15%, and it's considered the spicy grain. So am I going to get a big spicy hit with that much rye in here? The answer is no. This is very mild. It's not coming across very sweet. It's got a little bit of heat in it, which is fine. It didn't burn the mouth in any way. The nose was a little more interesting than the mouthfeel. It went down really well. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with this. It's not spectacular. I'm not big caramel rich notes. This is kind of a gentler. It's very Canadian in the sense it's very mild. It's got a little more floral and flavor to it, which is interesting. You know what? If you put this in a lineup, you wouldn't pick this out as a Canadian. That's what's interesting about it.
Huh.
Yeah. It's like it seems more Scottish than anything else. But a Scot would be confused because it seems it's not sweet like corn, but it's lighter than straight barley would normally be. Yeah, this is a surprise. I'm not going to hunt this down. It's also $45 Canadian. So it's a bargain. That would be $30 American. And I don't think they're selling in the US yet. So I haven't seen anywhere. I think I picked it up for $50. So this is not, these guys are in relatively new production. No age statement on this. Obviously corn, they say it's all Canadian grains. It is called a whiskey, so it's got to be at least 3 years old. They're not calling it a blend, just a rye whiskey, but again, those are not that restrictive in Canada. So they've certainly spent at least, you'd call it a whiskey, everything had to have been in the barrel for 3 years. They did the barreling separately. They were only laying up barrels in 2019, so the longest anything could be was 7 years. I don't think it's that old, and for that price, certainly not. They do make a single malt that's $75. Which that's barley, and it's harder to make and probably needed to age a little longer as well. Although there's no age statements on their singles either, on the single malts. This is nice. For as difficult as it was to find, because I'm on the West Coast, because it's really in Ontario, and people have a good feeling about the Sleeman's name, just their new beer, their honey brown and so forth are good beers and things. You'd probably want to grab one of these. And of course, this is more to do with the Sleeman family than the Sleeman beer does anymore, which actually is from Sapporo now. So, if you like the folks, and again, they're hyping up their prohibition angle now these days. They're trying to be the bad boys, and that's why they're in whiskey now. But I think it's mostly just stories. I don't know how accurate that stuff is. But yeah, they've made something distinctive here, and good on them. They're playing off it says on the label here 1836, and I hope by the story I've just told you, this has nothing to do with 1836. They got that distillery built in 2018, so a bit of a stretch, but okay. But if you were going to get into the whiskey, but you think about John W. Sleeman, who put 20-something years into bringing back the Sleeman name in beer and then sold it off for a huge pile of money, and now decided to do whiskey with his sons, which is really what we're talking about.
Yeah.
You need a story. Don't you need a story? So you play on the old name, you play on the Prohibition story, you play on the 50-year ban, which again, I could not find an ounce of evidence that there was actually a legal mandate for the 50-year ban. Not a bit. But lots of people talk about it, but I think it's just part of the story. They've done something fun here, and they made a decent whiskey from it. So I got nothing bad to say about John Sleeman. Well done. Cool product. Good. Bad website, by the way. You actually, when you finally dig your way, if you go to the shop online,
right, and
the whiskey section, you'll see the whiskeys, and there's an option to discover. And when you click on discover, you will have a very slow loading Squarespace page.
Oh, that's funny.
That is just the brochureware of that whiskey. It's literally the page they would put in a store.
It's not even, there's nothing.
It's not clickable. Click. It's not linkable. It's like, it might as well be a PDF.
Okay. And which one do you I can't even get back to the.
Yeah, no, you have to. The one I just tasted with the rye whiskey, which was the $45 Canadian bottle.
I can't.
You're on the high rye, which is $65. So that presumably is more than 50% rye. If I was going to go get another one, I'd go get their single malt.
Okay.
Because I want to taste the barley, and it's the most expensive at $75. All right. Yeah, so
very interesting.
Berg's talking about who doesn't love a bootlegger. Exactly. They're playing off the bootlegger, and they're playing off finding that little space underneath the old mill that clearly had a bootlegger's distillery.
That was from 1836. That's the part that was from.
That was probably from 1925.
Oh yeah, because it was the.
Right. It was while they were making stuff for the Americans, somebody built it. And it almost certainly wasn't the Sleeman family. One of the things they noted when they dug all that stuff out was it had dump pipes into the river. So I think they were prepared for if the police tried to raid them, that they could drop a whole load.
Dump it
into the river.
Wow.
Yeah. Which makes it much more of a bad guys, distillery, that you have these systems for avoiding law enforcement. And it was hidden in the floor and all that sort of things. Like one of the quotes on this is that literally they lifted up an old carpet and there was a brass ring set in the floor that popped open a hatch to a ladder down to this hidden basement. Again,
we all need an escape room or whatever.
I don't know how much of that stuff is true. They've definitely restored the old building. Apparently, John W. had been planning to build a new building from scratch. And after finding this, switched. But again, I found no evidence that was true either. Who wants to hamper a good story? And it makes for a distinctive whiskey. So, well, you know what I'm most interested in? 5 years from now, see if they make a 10. Like, what did they lay up originally when we start getting some real age statement versions of their whiskey?
How many barrels did they put down? Yeah.
How many did they put down? That building, because it's an old mill, is massive, much bigger. So that they have several floors of rack house above the distillery. So they have the ability to lay up a lot, but, limits of wood and money. You spend a lot of time. They do make a gin and a vodka, so clearly they've been trying to fill the pipeline to make a little revenue as well while they've been waiting for the whiskey to get ready.
Nice.
Yeah. Maybe a good Canadiana story.
Mr. Richard Campbell is a Canadian all the way down to his New Zealand boots. Then he becomes a New Zealander.
Nobody's perfect, Leo.
No one's perfect. He is from runasradio.com. That's where you'll find Run As Radio and .NET Rocks, his podcasts. And, of course, you'll find him here every Wednesday with Paul Thurrott from thurrott.com and his books at leanpub.com. Although, if you subscribe to thurrott.com, you get all those books as part of the package. So that's a good way to get Windows Everywhere, de-enshittify Windows, and the Field Guide to Windows 11 as part of your membership at thurrott.com. Every Wednesday, 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern, 1800 UTC, we sit down, we turn on the microphones, we turn on the lights, we turn on the cameras, we turn on the whiskey, and we talk about Windows and Microsoft and all of that jazz. And you're invited to join us. If you want to do it live, you can. Now, club members, of course, get behind the velvet rope access at the Club Twit Discord. You know, that's neither here nor there. The rest of us unwashed masses can watch on YouTube, Twitch, X.com, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Kick. How about that? After the fact, on-demand versions of the show at twit.tv/dubdub. There's also a YouTube channel dedicated to Windows Weekly, a great way to share clips. And the easiest way to make sure you get every episode is subscribe in your favorite podcast client. And of course, if you're a member, you can get the chapter markers and skip around if you wish. Many of you, I know, just want to go straight to the whiskey. And if that's what you wish to do, join the club and you can.
Also, say counseling, because you might have a drinking problem.
Please drink responsibly. I suppose we should say that at the end of every show.
Right. AI responsibly. Also
AI,
drink.
Please, AI responsibly. I just saw that DuckDuckGo's references users went up 28% after Google announced they're going to put more AI in the search. Nice. So there you have it. There's
something for everybody. That's all.
Coming up in about 5 minutes, if you're watching live, Intelligent Machines, Jeff Jarvis. Paris Martineau has the day off, so Father Robert Balaser will join us, the digital Jesuit. He has a place at the Vatican, so I think we'll have something to say about the Pope's AI encyclical. And one of my favorite photographers, Rick Salmon, will also join us. He does a class on photography and AI. Cool. For Kelby. So this will be interesting to talk about the place AI has in photography from one of the most accomplished photographers I know. Really talented fella. That's coming up. Thank you, everybody, for watching the show. We'll be back here next Wednesday. I hope you will, too, for Windows Weekly. See you then.